Welcome to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast. My goodness, it is early, where we play games and brew thoughtful conversation together. I am your host, Jenny Wyndham, she, her, and back with us in the cafe, ready to begin again, we have...
Josh, he, him. I'm sorry. I knew it was coming, and still.
I know, you're ready. You're like, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there.
Yeah, it's just that you just hear the begin again, and it's like, it's right, and also,
yeah. In case you are new or you need a refresher, we focus on one game a month, really percolate over it, if you will, so we can deep dive into its themes, mechanics, and how we connect to the game with our lives and our personal experiences. This month, we have been playing Sayonara Wild Hearts, which holds a truly special place in both of our hearts. This is a playable pop album where you're restoring a broken heart and balance to the universe. And I feel like playable pop album is so reductive when you have it just in the line compared to how it feels to play. So I'm really, really excited to dive fully into this with Josh. If you haven't gotten started yet, it is not too late. Be sure to pick it up and join the conversation over in Discord or via the newsletter. We also have our monthly hangout happening on June 27th at 3 p.m. Pacific if you want to talk in real time with folks in the community about the game. And it only takes about an hour to play. So truly, this is one where you can hop in even the morning of and be able to join the conversation later on. And you can check all of the info at geeksandgrounds.com. So let us hop into this month's brew. We'll start, as always, with a bit of a non-spoiler section where we kind of just go over general feelings, elevator pitch, mechanics, and then for the spoiler section, quote, is when we're really going to deep dive into the themes. So if you are someone who hasn't played it yet and you don't want to spoil sort of the story and emotional arcs, that's A-okay. We won't get into that until a little bit. So Josh, one thing I like to do is, especially after playing or replaying the game, is kind of hear everyone's elevator pitch for it. Like, how would you recommend this to someone, or who do you think should play this game?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think if I were to elevator pitch, I would say, like, it's a neon drenched, very queer arcade game. Did my stomach just growl on? Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear it.
Well, anyway. So
now everyone knows anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, and now I've revealed it to the masses. But yeah, I would call it this neon-drenched, very queer arcade game that where you get to be a sort of superhero battling your own heartbreak. It's got an incredible soundtrack, some wonderful visuals, and some great opportunities to reflect while also experiencing just some just really trippy experiences. It feels very unique in the space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think neon drenched is such a great phrase, and I might have to steal that. Honestly, I really, really like just how evocative that is. I think what I love most about this game, just to add to your explanation of it, because I think it's near perfect, basically. What I appreciate about this game is that it doesn't try to make you grind or repeat things unless, like, you as a player want to. And so I appreciate that as a player who sometimes really just wants to go on an emotional journey, just experience something and not feel stuck in a game. This is maybe the closest to, like, outside of something like Tetris, I feel like a game has captured in terms of what a flow state can truly feel like. And what I also really love is everything is so precise. And replaying this game this month, I didn't realize how specific and precise everything in this game is. Every little polygon, every detail, every note. And it just made me appreciate how intentional an experience can be in this 1 hour package. And so I think if you are someone, especially right now, who is looking for intentional art, this is that. So I would highly recommend anyone looking for just that kind of meaning in a bite-sized experience. I think they would enjoy it very much. It's also such a retrospective of gaming, which I did not think about really
Yeah.
ahead of time, but the way it journeys between, like, it's an arcade style game, but you've got like a little Sonic, you've got a little like Star Fox kind of in there, you've got a little bit of a side scroller, you got first person perspective, which I totally forgot.
Yeah.
So the again, it's the intentionality and how this is a emotional story. It's a history and love letter to games as a medium. It's just, it does so much in so little time, and I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. And I love that idea of it being this sort of flashback or retrospective on gaming. I feel like it also, because like it is drawing from a bunch of references that like, and I think it's really important when a game makes a reference that you don't need to get the joke to be able to get the experience. And like there are whole stages, like if you've never played Star Fox, if you've never played, you know, Sonic, whatever, it's not
Yeah.
going to make you feel like you're missing something.
Yes.
But it is still just like really, it adds this level of like, oh yeah, and these people, they're my people. Like, and so much of what I love about this game is how much it becomes also a retrospective on yourself the more that you play it.
Yeah.
And being able to make these new connections, being able to remember the things that felt relevant when you played it before, thinking about the things that feel relevant now. And you get that with any media that you revisit over time,
Yes.
right? Like it's one of the beautiful things about okay, I just need to. I need to.
Beginning again.
Yeah, boo.
Sorry.
Okay, put the counter on the screen. I think there is a sense of like one of the great things about media is that like we're constantly changing as people, but the media that we experience stays the same, and so we have this opportunity to have a point of reflection and to see the
Yeah.
ways that we shift as this thing that we related to stays in place. And like to be able to get that experience with a video game can sometimes be tough because most of the, or I should, yeah, because most of the games I feel that, I don't know, I keep caveating, I feel, just in case somebody wants to come in the comments and say, actually, but anyway, most games with emotional narrative content are also asking for a significant commitment of time to be able to do this in this sort of pop album style where you can go through in an hour and have that retrospective experience is really special and unique in the game space.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that I think about where I've mentioned this a couple times before to you and I think on this podcast, but I like to replay games quite often. Like Undertale, I'll try and replay usually around December for my holiday treat to myself. And Final Fantasy VII is a game that I'll replay every year because it's just a story that I really love revisiting. But it is increasingly hard to make time for those replays, and I've skipped years, every so often because it's just, like you said, a pretty significant time commitment, at least on the side of Final Fantasy VII. But even Undertale, that's hours of time, and to be able to say, hey, let me just before bed just hop into this game, and it's kind of it's a wind down, like it's 1 hour of your time. I think that's a really amazing gift that these developers have given us to be able to do that in such a, again, compact package. It's great.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're recording this on Friday morning, sort of after, in the immediate aftermath of like the Bungie layoffs and closure. And I've been thinking a lot about just institutional knowledge and history, and us talking about the fact that like this is a game that represents and respects so much of the history of the industry ahead of it. I don't know. I feel my brain sort of tying this together a little bit, where you have people who were able to create because they had this historical knowledge, this historical respect, and they've made games before. This was not their first game.
Right.
And I think of the folks at Bungie who have been making an incredible games for
Yeah.
years. And, it's just, I don't know, it's hard to look at history essentially being torn apart and hoping that it's getting archived in some way. So that's a tangent, but it just thinking about history in games and how we're keeping track of it, that just made me think of Bungie, honestly.
Yeah, and it's hard not to think of it. It's weird even having Destiny 2 as the direct reference there, because so much of the history of, like, Destiny 2 itself is so, like, evocative for those of us who played it. Like, I spent hundreds of hours in that game, and I have friends who I cemented time with. And also, the game does not like to, I felt like the game did not like to respect my time. If I didn't give it hundreds of hours, I was like, wait, why can't I play with my friends? And even the idea that, like, there is content that was part of Destiny 2 that is no longer accessible. The first couple expansions that were basically, the game started getting super huge. They trimmed stuff out, and then they were like pieces of the code are gone. This isn't about us at this point. This isn't about us arbitrarily cutting you off from this thing. It's no longer accessible. Destiny 2 still feels like, in many ways, this fantastic experience, but entire parts of it are just lost.
Yeah.
And now we have, again, a bunch of people who are making these really incredible products, and it also, I've had this just thought about how so much of our expectations and the culture around games are shaped by AAAs, right? Like, even though those of us who, will do like a Geeks and Grounds or whatnot are often the people who are hunting for and really inspired by a bunch of indie games, a lot of what creates the broad scale zeitgeist is the stuff that ends up on, everybody getting the hell out of the way of Grand Theft Auto 6, right? Like, and then you play a game like Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is heavily inspired by people who played the Sonic, the Mortal Kombat, the all of the things in the past that were those AAAs that helped, give that kind of shared language. And I don't know. I mean, there's this whole element of game sustainability, development sustainability that comes from being smaller teams, making smaller projects. And yeah, I don't know. It's great to think about. Here's a game like Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is done, right? Like, they made a thing, they released it into the world. They, I don't know how the team did with layoffs or whatnot, but I imagine that there wasn't the kind of, cool, we made the thing and it's making money and now you're jobless, that seems to be the trend in the industry right now. So sorry. I think it's a very relevant and heartbreaking thing. Yeah, a lot of love to the Bungie developers for sure.
Yeah, that's impossible. It's kind of interesting because it's like, this is not where I thought my brain would go when playing Sayonara Wild Hearts, but I replayed it again last night, and it was, again, the history of embedded within this game, and then seeing the news of Bungie, like just moments ago when I was, scrolling on my phone before hopping in and playing this. It's just that they started weaving together in a way that I did not expect would happen. So thank you for humoring that tangent. I'm curious, do you have any favorite mechanics or favorite moments in this game, just from a mechanical standpoint?
I think from a mechanics perspective, there are some places that I think, and this goes a little bit later, there are some places that, like, I think for some folks will be accessibility issues, but are, I think, mechanically, narratively kind of cool. It shifts between like dodging and navigating on a screen, and then there'll be some rhythm based like QTE style, quick time event style button presses, where you press the button as the circles gets in on the right timing, and the better your timing, the more points you get. There are places where they have you mash the button, and you'll get points for as many times as you mash the button. The faster you mash the button, the faster you do the thing. And it always feels conclusive. I thought like you get to really like drive the point home when all of a sudden you're just like mashing the button, like I am going to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
And that I like that contrast. I think mechanically the way that it shifts between experiences is actually my favorite experience, that it doesn't lock itself into one particular camera style, one particular interaction, that it's willing to let a level be like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And say that's enough. Like it's just, yeah, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I remember playing a game called Dave the Diver, for those who
Yes.
may not know.
The game of infinite games.
Yeah, the game of infinite games. And Dave the Diver, I mean, again, I liken it to French fries. You just kind of, you eat it. It doesn't necessarily fill you up, but it feels good as it's happening, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, but I felt like in Dave the Diver, the constant mechanical switch up for me felt destabilizing is maybe too strong of a word, but it didn't feel like I got to like really sink into things the way that I had hoped. And maybe because there were shifting mechanics, but there was this undercurrent of like the shop sim and fishing that felt so stable. The other shifting mechanics didn't feel as appealing to me personally after a while. But I think because all of Sayonara Wild Hearts, while you have this like arcadey undertone to everything, the levels do shift very consistently, and it's just enough where it somehow did not feel as like disorienting to me from a mechanical standpoint, whereas Dave the Diver felt like, for me, not as good. And I think I'm in the minority of that because I didn't quite enjoy as much of the mechanics shifting for like one moment and then going back to everything else. But again, it was interesting to me playing this and realizing this shifts quite often with its camera angles. You're changing perspectives. You're changing the goal. Where are you driving a car? Are you shooting at skulls? What are you doing here? And yet it all serves, I think, such a strong through line to the main themes that for me it made sense and it felt good.
I feel that makes a lot of sense. I haven't played Dave the Diver. I've watched a number of people play it, and it's been on my I really want to play this list because it does feel like game candy. Like it does.
It is game candy, yeah.
Yeah, just a bunch of interesting novel. Any of these individual things you could probably do for 50 hours, like, achievement hunting. And I think there is an element, I think what makes Sayonara Wild Hearts feel stable in the midst of its constant shifting is that it sets its expectations from the jump.
Yeah.
Right. It kind of clearly says from stage one, from its world 1-1, you have a change in perspective. You have things moving with the music. You kind of have the expectation that like, we're going to go through some stuff. It's going to be kind of quick. And that's okay. And you're going to do a bunch of wild things. When you do eventually get to when you get to like the second or third, I think the third stage maybe is the first one where you can, no, I think the second stage is the first one where you can like die or whatever. Yeah. But your reset is super fast, and even dying is disorienting in a way that you're like, this sucks, but I don't feel like it's a big penalty. In fact, if you're not score chasing, you may not even feel a whole lot of the penalty aside from the break in the music. And I do think the biggest reward of mastering Sayonara Wild Hearts is the ability to listen to
Yes.
the music like not
Absolutely.
uninterrupted, but like with you truly participating in it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree. Like there is something that just feels, you feel comfortable in the game's chaos, and
Yeah.
that is, yeah, that's a gift of design.
Mm-hmm. It truly is. Um, I'd love to just hop in to it, honestly. Is there anything else that you'd like to share ahead of diving into like the track list and sort of working through the songs together?
Yeah, on your list you talk about, were there any problems or bugs? And
Oh yeah.
the one thing, this is, I probably just have some significant work to try and investigate something with my rig. But when I first picked up the game, I picked it up on the Switch, and runs super smooth. 30 frames, 60 frames, whatever the Switch does native. No problems. I have been super excited about playing it on PC because I'm like, I want the like high
Oh yeah.
res screenshots, like the whole nine. And I got frame drops
No.
and my rig is not bad. This is like it's probably a good 4 years old at this point, maybe, but it's not run an indie game from a few years ago at 1920 by 1080. Like
Yeah.
it's not, it shouldn't struggle there, you know. So I have to investigate because like I actually felt offended when it would drop frames. I was like upset. So I recommend playing the game on console because it's just, you don't have to press any buttons, you don't have to change or whatever. And even on the Switch, it was pretty buttery smooth. So
Yes. I played it on Switch 2
and Steam
'cause,
Deck.
yeah.
So
And I
Switch
have
2.
Yeah, I was like Switch 2, so it ran really great. But when I previously had played it, I had played it on Steam Deck and Switch and had like, no problems at all. So I'm so sorry your computer gave you a hard time.
I am so disappointed, and I have to figure out what is going on with it, because it just feels wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, what feels right is diving in
Let's do
to the full experience. Again, this is I call it spoiler section just because it means anything from any point in the game we can bring. So if we wanted to bring in something from the ending right here at the beginning, we absolutely could. This is your heads up. Okay. So the game begins in such a beautiful way because you have this narrator. We have Queen Latifah narrating, which is like just wonderful. Just such a joy, honestly. And she says something like, not long ago, in a town like yours, there's a young woman who was very happy until her heart broke so violently her sorrow echoes through space and time. And I'm just like, what a beginning. Her heart broke so violently. Like, that is so evocative. And she continues to say and introduce the story and says, the saga begins tonight, yet eons ago, just here, yet light years away. So it creates this sort of timelessness to the whole thing. It could have been yesterday. It could have been today. This could happen tomorrow. And we pan in on a woman who is leaving a falafel shop, which is so mundane. You know, it's an everyday thing. Maybe it's where she works. Maybe that's where the heartbreak occurred. Maybe the final conversation happened there. I don't know. And she hops on a skateboard and goes away, and like, cue the music, cue the logos. The game has begun. And it's just like, what a beginning.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't fully, the first time, like, I think the first time that you sit with it, it's hard for me to put myself in the place of the first time that I played it. I can feel sort of echoes of like, I'm pretty sure this is how I feel the first time I play it. And the first time that I played it, I'm pretty sure I just felt like fascinated, right? Like it's just enough. The language is so poetic, right? That it's captivating. And then you spend more time with it and it starts to feel more familiar. You get into the depth of like, I also did not even think like, oh, is this where did the heartbreak happen here? I was just like, I don't know. I think you just left work at the falafel shop. Like, I don't know why. There's a part of me that thinks that there has to be a Varnum somewhere who is a significant person to somebody on the dev team.
Yeah.
Because like Varnum's falafel is just way too prominent in there to not be somehow like somebody's friend, QA'er, name of a dog.
Or maybe it's an actual shop where someone got broken up with at some point. You know what I mean? Like, it's a real shop somewhere. Honestly, if it was, we should make a trip. Go get falafels there.
I can only imagine like that would be so, especially for it to be this like this kind of cult classic indie game. You just are running this falafel shop, minding your own business, and then one day you've got all of these people who probably are now dressed up in weird masks and whatever, who like show up for falafel, and you're like, why?
What's going on?
Why are you here?
Oh, yeah, we should. I'll see if I can find out the lore for this falafel shop. Now I'm like, maybe I should have falafel for dinner just to embrace the Sayonara Wild Hearts of it all.
Right.
So from that intro, we move into the structure. It is.
What? Yeah. Varnum's falafel. Experience the best falafel in Malmo, Sweden.
Oh my! So we're going to Sweden
the storefront. No, the storefront is straight up. Like it's the same typeface.
Oh my gosh! Something happened at this falafel shop.
Something happened at this falafel shop.
My
Yeah.
gosh.
No, this is okay. Yeah. Is it? And it doesn't look like it's a chain. It looks like it's a.
Oh my god!
Best What the heck?
That's
okay.
amazing.
Yeah. Now we have to go to Sweden.
Yep. All right. Geeks
They
and
don't
Browns
even
field trip.
They don't even have. They've got 520 followers on Instagram. Like this isn't like. Yeah. Wow.
There we
Okay.
go. There we
People
go.
need to go. People need to go appreciate this falafel shop.
Yes.
Yep.
And so the game begins, and we see the arcade structure where basically you get the title screen for the level. Essentially, you get a song title. And you have Queen Latifah saying it, which is really fun, and you dive in. And so the first song we get to play is Claire de Lune, which is like one of the most iconic classical songs out there. I feel like I feel hard pressed to play it and have someone who says like, oh, I've never heard this before. Like I feel like it's so embedded in at least Western media, at the very least. And we learn within this song that there is now this sort of other story happening, like the layers of reality. We're moving into fantasy where a harmonious universe existed. There were 3 arcana that watched over it: the High Priestess, the Empress, and the Hierophant. And basically a cursed arcana, death, came and intersected like the astral highways and stole harmony and hid it in the vile hearts of these other arcana. And before the divine trio faded, they created a heroine from the shards of this broken heart and hoped that one day she'd be strong enough to save their world. I took a couple of notes because the arcana and tarot is such a important sort of thread of symbols in this game. I don't do tarot, and so this was actually my first foray into reading about the arcana and what they represent, and it is so fascinating because it really just illuminates and helps further guide you through this journey that this character is going through. So I wanted to share really quickly a little bit of context. So there's the major arcana, who are the named cards within a tarot deck. They go from 0 to 21 typically, with 0 usually always being the Fool. And every card in the major arcana represents different archetypes and different sort of prominent characters that have been honed over the years. And they do vary depending on the type of tarot deck you do, but we won't go into all of those details. The full deck usually has like 78 cards, but this game focuses on the major arcana. With the three that we talk about, the Empress represents the themes of fertility and nurturing and abundance. She's associated with love, beauty, and creativity. The High Priestess, which was the second card, represents divine law and the memories we carry about the past, present, and future. And she's also implied to be kind of sisters with the Empress. She can also represent, when reversed, secrecy and disconnection from your intuition, which I thought was really interesting. And the Hierophant is a counterpart to the High Priestess, representing the bridge between heaven or hell or deity and humanity. And he's often involved with like the dualities of law and freedom, obedience or disobedience. And yeah, he has a key above him that's representing like the key to heaven. So those are the three arcana that we're introduced with, which I thought were really cool.
Wow.
And there's a cutscene where you have your character, she's at home. The house flips and turns upside down and like dumps her out into this sort of magical highway and transforms her. And I realized, because apparently in tarot, the cards can face sort of their normal orientation, or they can be upside down, which is where they're kind of the reverse or alternate meaning. And I was like, oh my God, the house is turning upside down. Like her cards actually have flipped into maybe their not ideal form or representation. And so not only is her world turning upside down, I think she is just not in her best self at this moment, which I thought was, I'm like, you know what? We're here to read deep into it. I'm reading deep into it. I was like, this feels intentional. I love this. And the last note that I wanted to share was the fact that this scene is a magical transformation scene. And as a major fan of magical girl shows, the transformation in a magical girl anime or show is like the most iconic moment of the genre. This is like the thing, the marker of the genre. And this transformation often represents like usually a young, like teenage girl transforming into usually a maybe more slightly mature version of themselves, maybe a more beautiful or ornamented version of themselves. And those versions can handle like whatever life throws at them, usually bad guys and, you know, saving the world. And the transformation usually happens with a lot of light and sparkles and glowing ribbons, which helps often represent like the actual clarity of understanding yourself better. The truth of like light is kind of like embedded within this, and like literal metamorphosis, like ribbons will wrap around the girls' bodies, kind of like cocoons to transform them. So literal like butterfly symbolism happening. And what I also just clocked for myself was that transformations usually don't happen just once. So while in this game we kind of go through that major transformation once, I feel like, going into the theme of replaying, this is sort of a transformation that'll happen multiple times over someone's life. And this is just sort of one of those moments in this person's life that she's experiencing. Okay, I'm going to put a pause there. I just wrote all these notes down and I wanted to get them out.
That's a lot of really strong data. And I think the, like, making the ties to, you know, Sailor Moon, to what, Cardcaptor Sakura.
Yes.
Does that, yeah, you know, a lot of that magical girl energy that we now see, I mean, is in all kinds of shows, right? Like She-Ra and the Princes of Power, which, why is that not on Netflix anymore? There was an interesting thing playing it this time around. There was a part of me that recognized that I didn't identify with the protagonist as aggressive before. That it felt like for me, going through it and like thinking about the connections of experiencing the game, like it's really hard to not think about your own experiences with relationships and with heartbreak in particular. And I kind of felt like going through it before was this like, it felt like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm getting forced into this thing, and I'm not quite ready for it. I'm not, like I'm kind of the hero's journey. I feel like is so you're so accustomed to this idea of you have to train up to the point where you're ready to take on the fight, right? And this feels really different because, like, for the most part, you're not like leveling up. You are ready to go from the jump, right? Like when you get dumped out of the house and you do the first stage, the Clair de Lune stage, untransformed. But after that, like, you're not only transformed, you're like ready for action. Every stage has you moving constantly towards each of these different arcana, these different corrupted arcana, cursed arcana that that you're looking to fight against. And there are elements of you changing and adapting to each scenario. So there's the part that stuck out to me the most. Every relationship that you go through gives you new tools to figure out how to approach the world, right? And like each of the different sort of rivals, each of the different cursed arcana kind of represents this journey of going through different relationships, over time, these different whatever. And so like stereo lovers, like she actually throws you a sword, right? Like before you actually go into combat, she tosses you a sword and then you duel and then end up splitting her in half and go through the whole thing. And that just felt really significant to me when I think about now being older, having a number of relationships that were like tough to go through, but I can look back on and see the tools that they gave me to handle like other situations later in life, to feel like, oh, some of these things, even though they're antagonistic, we're not enemies, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there is something really cool to that idea of like the transformation being like you're enough from the jump to take on each of these situations. You don't have to Power Rangers your way. Every couple of seasons you get a brand new whatever. Right. You have a bigger and bigger, it's like, no, you carry the things within you to handle this. And it's just a question of like, how are you going to adapt to the next iteration of the situation? Yeah, I really love that.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, because you mentioned the hero's journey, in my reading of just trying to learn about tarot to connect it to this game, apparently there is this thing called the Fool's Journey in cartomancy. And the Fool, which is the card that represents our protagonist here, apparently is always the 0 card in the major arcana, usually depicted as the protagonist of stories within this type of lore. And the Fool's Journey in this is, from my understanding, is the path that the fool takes through the mysteries of the life, and the arcana represent all the different mysteries that you are meant to see addressed and learn from, or carry with you in different ways. And the fool represents not just like foolishness or like jester, like clown fool, but it represents unrealized potential. It represents folly and sort of like just that sense of not knowing versus like kind of the maybe a more derogatory right. Like fool, like you imbecile, it's more about your unrealized potential. And that for me is what resonated when I read this, because like you said, I got the sense that this character does have what she needs to go through these trials, but it's about realizing that power within her and like actually unlocking it versus necessarily like getting a whole new transformation sequence and a whole new different attack. So yeah. Cool.
Yeah. We could do whole episodes with just like, each song.
With just one song. Yeah, what was it? Dissect. Is that the one where he goes
Yeah,
through
the
like albums and does
track
each
by
song?
track. Hmm.
Honestly, yeah. So that's Claire de Lune, and I wanted to shout out also like Claire de Lune is usually thought about as a song or interpreted as a song that's like very impressionistic, very much like about being in the moon, like Lune is moon, about sort of like hidden emotions and sentiments. And so I think this song kind of leading us into sort of this emotional place and symbolic place is also very fitting. Because I think it's the only song that isn't original to this album. I'm trying to
Yeah,
think.
the what is the for some reason I feel like I hear some familiar theme in the stage select music.
Maybe,
Um,
yeah.
but I otherwise, yeah, and it's also a big contrast in style of music too, right? We're
Yes.
going from this sort of familiar, calmer orchestral piece, classical piece into the stronger like pop vibes.
And speaking of moving into the pop vibes, usually I feel like each area has similar structures in the levels where you start with sort of the tunnel that introduces you to the area. You get maybe one or two songs that introduce you to like the sub boss of that area. And then you get a longer song that has lyrics that's like the culminating big boss battle. So
Hmm.
every act has kind of a four-ish level structure approximately. That brings us to Heartbreak 1, which introduces us to the Devil card. And the structure of this level is it's literally a heart-shaped tunnel. The camera stays behind you. You just move on through collecting hearts. It's very straightforward. The Devil as a card represents like staying in ignorance, feeling hopeless, complacency, and this idea of not knowing the truth and not realizing what we don't know, which at the start of the journey, that's pretty fitting. Yeah. Do you have anything? Heartbreak 1, pretty straightforward
Yeah,
level.
yeah, very much.
Just kind of go through.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing to me about the heartbreak levels is that like as a sequence is that they are places of to me they feel like they're more places of pure intuition. So like when you're playing through them, there is a little bit of logic of how I do think about how to how to score high on these stages as part of my sort of an like metaphorical analysis, right? Because like
Yeah.
again, I think that there's in thinking about sort of approaching heartbreak and like how we handle emotional experiences in life, there's a certain amount of like how do we how do we take more control of no, how do we have a better understanding of and movement through the experiences that we have in life. And the first few times that you go through the heartbreak sequences, I find them incredibly disorienting. They happen
Yes.
super fast. Well, a lot of them happen super fast. There's the sailboat one that is very slow and kind of painful by comparison. But they happen super fast. You're getting teleported from one side of the screen to the other. Everything's flashing, everything's whatever. Like, and oftentimes it's done before you know it.
Yeah.
And so there is I don't know. I guess I always thought of like, oh, Heartbreak 1, Heartbreak 3 feels like, oh, it's an interesting title for this sequence of things. But yeah, it is this like the quick experience of the heartbreak that we go through. Oftentimes being disorienting, sometimes darker and more contemplative. But yeah, it's a cool way to think about, oh, how do we transition into handling and processing this thing that just happened?
Yes. Yeah, I think the abstractness of these levels is what I find really appealing because everything else has a location. Everything else has setting, whereas this feels like Rainbow Road on
Yes.
times a million, honestly. So yeah, I think that's exactly it. These are the moments, like the moment of heartbreak, and it's just the feeling, and I love that. I think that's a really, really great interpretation of it.
It also just kind of kicked out to me that like it also feels interesting then that like we as the heroine don't really get to experience any of these characters until heartbreak. Like when we are like we're experiencing them not as the people that we assumedly had some relationship with before
Right.
the heartbreak occurs. Like we are engaging with the things that are left behind. We are is like
Yes.
now the cool. There were probably good things and milkshakes and you know and whatever, but like our job now is to go through the chaos, the
Yeah.
conflict. And so I think about the heartbreak stages often as the beginning of the interaction when technically it feels like it's closer to the end. Like this is yeah, like these are yeah. I yeah, didn't clock that before.
Yeah. Yeah. My sense as I was playing was like the heartbreak tunnels and sort of interludes were, yeah, the moment of the heartbreak. And then as you're going through the levels and engaging with them, it's like you have that's when you've sort of decided you're picking up those shards and it's kind of like picking up what you are learning from this relationship, right? You're not, and like to your point, and I agree, you don't see them as maybe the whole person that they are, the good and the bad, the memories that you've held. You're really in that moment of like, this is the feeling that I have towards them in the immediate aftermath of the heartbreak. And these are kind of the shards that I'm picking up and trying to take away with me from this relationship. In a sense, kind of like, yeah, learning, hopefully. Although some of the emotions definitely don't feel focused on learning or getting better necessarily, which is part of the process.
Yeah.
And I guess that leads us to Doki Doki Rush, which is the first kind of encounter with, or I guess no, I don't think you encounter them yet. I think at this point you are in, I wrote down Hate Hill Valley,
Yeah.
which is so
Hate Hell
unforgettable.
Valley, I think it is.
Yeah, Hate Hell Valley, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you unlock your badass motorcycle, the
Mm-hmm.
Wheel of Fortune. That's just cool. And this is, you haven't even encountered the sort of catalyst to your heartbreak yet. You're just driving through this nighttime cityscape, dodging cars, just to bring back another Mario Kart level. I was like, Toad's Turnpike, but times 10.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you're getting used to now kind of just controlling this vehicle, moving around. This is your first time actually having to dodge things, which I also think is kind of interesting. You're not just collecting hearts.
Right.
Yeah. Any notes on Doki Doki Rush?
Yeah, it's it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It also I don't know if there are cards are there mini cards in Heartbreak 1?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Doki Doki Rush may be the first mini card level.
I think, yeah.
And if it's not, sorry. But the reason why mini cards feel really impactful to me, the scoring in this game it's this really interesting cumulative scoring. Like there are small hearts that you can pick up, there are big hearts that you can pick up, and then there are mini cards. The mini cards are oftentimes they are like large bonuses of like I think they increase for every one that you pick up 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 points. The small and large hearts, every one that you pick up increases the like the score that you get by, or at least the small hearts, every one that you pick up increases the next one by 1. So the first one's 1, the second one's 2, you pick up the 10th one, it's worth 10. And so long as you don't die, that increase keeps happening. So the longer that you stay alive and keep picking things up, the larger your score gets, which also means if you die halfway through, your counter is going to reset back to 1, which makes it harder for you to like high rank. gosh, I'm sorry, I'm monologuing so much about a thing that feels so mundane,
No,
but I think it's really
no.
significant
Yeah.
because the mini cards, you have to hunt for oftentimes. Like you have to the smaller hearts, the middle heart, the like big hearts are oftentimes in places that you're naturally going to navigate on a stage. So you'll see a trail of hearts and you'll follow them around.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be in this big, pile of like 5 rows of big hearts, and you're not going to be able to pick them all up, but you're probably going to get as many points as you could just by like randomly careening your way into and out of these spaces. But the
Yeah.
mini cards are single items that are really precise, that are oftentimes tucked away in corners of the level, or like, for instance, one of them in Doki Doki Rush, there's like a big trolley car on the left hand
Mm-hmm.
side of the stage, and the card
Yeah.
is
Yep.
behind that trolley car. You have to duck in between this like narrow alley that on your first few plays may not even feel like a place you can actually fit your bike. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to duck through that to be able to pick up this like really large point bonus. And that feels like an apt metaphor that when we go through it and we reflect on these experiences, the oftentimes the first times we're just trying to survive. I still feel kind of surprised by how fluidly I can move through these stages, remembering the first time, like remembering the jolt of every time that I
Mm-hmm.
would hit a trolley car, hit a wall, hit a whatever. And I'm like, oh, it doesn't hurt that way. I don't lose that often. But that opportunity to really get that higher score and feel that sort of mastery of the stage comes from revisiting the stages over and over, paying
Mm.
close attention to the layout, and then seeing places where sometimes honestly the stage doesn't even give you the hint that the mini card is going to be anywhere. I think it's Fighting Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Fighting Hearts where there are like these left right splits, and you
Yes.
just choose one or the other. And if you don't choose the right split, you're not going to get the card. And it doesn't tell you, it doesn't give you a hint. There's no contextual, whatever. You just learn by doing it again and again. And that
Mm-hmm.
is a really interesting game design choice because oftentimes, it's like, oh, I should give you all the tools to know how to maximize the thing. Here, they're like,
Yeah.
we did give you the tool. It's play the damn thing again and be willing to explore.
Yeah. Man, I think it's so interesting to hear you talk about the ways that the more you're replaying, the more that the quote punishment, because I say it lightly because the
Yes.
punishment in the game is not super hyper punishing, but the punishment feels even less so because you can just bounce back, you're going to try again, and you're going to revisit and learn from your mistakes. And I think a lot about resiliency just as individuals and
Hmm.
how when we go into these situations, like the first time you get your heart broken, it's devastating.
Yeah.
It is so hard, and it doesn't necessarily get easier. The heartbreak doesn't change, but your ability to move forward does evolve as you get familiar with these hardships or these different situations. Your ability to respond and react to the situations improves. And so I think a lot about how this game, man, maybe up there with Celeste in terms of teaching resiliency in
Hmm.
the face of some of these challenges, where it's not about punishing you for the sake of punishing you. It's about providing you opportunities to come back again and practice and try to be better next time. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and comparing it to Celeste makes so much good sense. Spaces where like, and I imagine you experience this even just as a teacher, right? Like, how do I
Mm-hmm.
give you a chance to experience failure and not
Mm-hmm.
take that as like, now it's a person. Like, I struggle with this still as a almost 40-year-old adult, of
Yeah.
like feeling anything less than perfection is like a
Yeah.
statement on my character, as
Right.
opposed to a space where you failed, like, and that's okay, and you can begin again.
Yeah. Damn. Put that on
Drink.
the counter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, and you touched on this earlier, but the motivation for getting better is as a positive one. It's the opportunity to feel more connected with the music, more connected with the game. It's not a fear of like, oh man, I don't want to have to do this level again, or oh, I'm going to lose all of this progress. And so I think that motivation coming from a more positive place is a really interesting one to think about. Whereas, I don't know, I think of like Bennett Foddy, you know, that game, the motivation is a little bit like, at least for me, when I played, a little bit out of fear. Like, I want to succeed because I don't want to have to do this again. And I don't, like, I am just so afraid of not not making it because the journey has been so difficult. I don't know if I could do this again. Whereas this game does provide you this really safe place to say, failure is not the end. You can always come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Doki Doki Rush, which as a side note, I learned this from Final Fantasy X. Doki Doki, which maybe everyone knows from other anime, but for me, Final Fantasy X taught me this. Heartbeat, heart flutter. It's kind of like the onomatopoeia in Japan for that feeling. So this is Doki Doki Rush. So it's like the rush of your heartbeat, or flutter of your heartbeat, which I think is a really evocative
Cool.
title. Especially moving into Heartbreak, because you do have that feeling of your heart just kind of like going off.
Yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned the next track, the next level is Fighting Hearts, and we're still in the same city. This is the same world, I guess,
Right.
for lack of a better term for that. And we encounter, what are they called? The Fighting Devils?
Hold
I'm
on.
blanking
I'll take
on their name.
I'll take a look.
Yeah. While you do that, so this is your first instance of essentially interacting with other human-like figures. All of these characters, they seem to be masked in some way. They're wearing kind of retro, almost like, what is it, sports
Kind of,
jackets?
yeah, like varsity jackets.
Varsity jackets, yeah, that's what they're called. And this is very Sentai feeling, like Power Rangers Sentai, where you've got a group of, usually it's 5. I think there's only 3 here in this group. And they're fighting you with these sort of magical bolts and big explosive movements. And you're sort of chasing them through the city through this level.
Dancing Devils. I
Devils.
totally didn't use this as an excuse to open up the game right now. Oh God, no, it's the song. I have to quit because I will cry on. Anyway, yeah, no, it's Dancing Devils.
Yeah. I think this is another short track, really just getting you introduced to the characters. Again, this is our first encounter with combat. They're fighting us, but it doesn't feel like the movements are intense, but I don't feel a lot of hate from them as characters. Like, it doesn't feel like they are out to get me individually. Which is kind of weird. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like they're not malicious, but they are attacking us.
Yeah, I felt a little bit of like, it felt a little, this playthrough around, there were 2 things that I was trying to figure out in my head. One, how does this relate to relationships and monogamy? Because there are multiple spaces where you engage with multiple people, and then there are some spaces where you only have individual people. And so I was like, are there places to do a sort of a queer reading through a lens of, right? And then I was like, I don't know that I actually caught that as much as, with the exception of maybe Stereo Lovers, but that's but I think these are like, I was thinking, oh yeah, there are other heartbreaks, right? Like, to me, this felt like kind of the like like a girl gang. Like I got like a West Side Story, a something
Yeah.
like that kind of vibe, right? Like the first heartbreak being not necessarily your romantic crush who does you wrong, but the group of friends that like you find out was talking behind your back, the
Ooh,
you know,
yeah.
the slumber party that you didn't get invited to, the somebody tells a, you know, a joke because you have a bad haircut or whatever, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there are all kinds of ways that we experience heartbreak, and it
Yeah.
feel so to me, the dealing with the dancing devils, you know, the cheerleaders, the you know, the cheerleader squad that like bullies you, whatever, like there's a heartbreak there too. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it feels a little less directed. It feels less personal, right? Like they are taking
Yes.
shots at you,
Yeah.
but it feels less personal than the later ones, and I think it feels
Mm-hmm.
like a different kind of heartbreak.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I remember we talked about it in the last episode about how, you know, love can mean a lot of different, this game can mean a lot of different things. So that sort of more friend group potentially, like bullying kind of heartbreak is a really, really great. I really appreciate that interpretation. One of the things I was thinking about is potentially how the thing I go back and forth with this game is, and depending on it when I play, lean towards different answers. Is this one major relationship that went through so many phases, like all these heartbreaks within a relationship, or are these different relationships that each contributed different types of heartbreak to your, you know, experience? So it's interesting because with this playthrough, I think I leaned a little bit more towards different relationships over a cumulative period of time, like over a
Mm-hmm.
long period of time. But I've interpreted other ways as well. And for me, Doki Doki Rush and like Fighting Hearts felt very much like the very hot and cold kind of young relationship where
Mm-hmm.
you are like when it's on, it's on. And then when you are fighting, but you also kind of know you're going to maybe get back together again later. And so like the shots you're taking aren't to like, they're not like kill shots, you know, they're not
Right.
meant to really break each other. They're just part of that. Like you get angry, but you also fall back, you know, just as hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a little bit of what I brought to this playthrough and this interpretation of Fighting Hearts, where it's like it's not a good relationship for you, like that's not sustainable, but you have this intensity, you have this fire that does fuel the relationship. You're literally like, I think it happens a little bit more in Begin Again, but you're like going through the city and it's like in flames.
You're right,
But it's still
right.
kind of playful, like it's not there's a playfulness and like freedom to it that feels very youthful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That might be why the next song is
Yeah.
continually. I don't know what fucking alchemy they put into that next stage,
Yeah.
but I agree. There is this sort of like it feels playful. It feels intense. It feels cool. Like
Yeah.
you're this is the, you know, you just got the bike and you're never an amateur with this bike. Like you
Yeah.
are jumping on top of it and like doing these like ballet poses
Yeah.
while operating a motor vehicle at full speed. You have no hands on the wheel.
Damn.
Like
We're cool.
you're top tier from the jump. And so it feels like fascinating and fun and also like potentially devastating. And like when they're attacking you, like the camera angle changes and you see them like
Yes.
pointing the finger gun at you, which is relatively easy to dodge. That attack is
Mm-hmm.
so easy to dodge
Mm-hmm.
once you've played the game a few times.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
like those first couple times, you're just like, why can I not get out of the way? This is so tough. Like I remember struggling with some of these things.
Yeah.
And now I go back and I'm like, they gave you so much of a read. You knew this was a problem so long ago, and you have
Yeah.
all the time in the world to react.
But it's fun.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's so
it's
fun.
real fun, and then you look back on it later and you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Totally not. Never had that experience in a relationship ever. No.
Yeah. But it's true. I think there's something in this song that is so truly joyful and special, and but at the same time, I swear I'm like someone's cutting onions every time I play the song, and I don't know why they're following me doing this targeted attack, but
Did
they need to stop.
are
'Cause
we? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, you too, because
Ye-
like what is it about this song that just like just digs into my tear ducts and just kind of goes to town in there.
yeah, Begin Again is I don't know what it is about. It's the stage design. I mean, I talked about it on the last episode. I was like, I just turned the song on in the car and was like,
Yeah.
operating a motor vehicle, can't have water in my eyes.
Not safe.
Yeah, not a good idea. But I was trying to just like get in the zone this morning and was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do just like a quick run through, and like
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and we're recording fairly early in the morning. Thank you for helping me, Jenny. We had to
Yeah, no worries.
reschedule, and I wanted to try and get the recording in before stream. And I'm like, I'm groggy. I'm like laying in bed. I open up the Steam Deck. I turn on the level. I was like, I don't even have headphones on. I have to get out of bed and put clothes on. Like I cannot just casually play this level. And I'm sitting here groggy, frustrated because I'm breaking frames, and frustrated that I'm like, I'm not gonna have this emotional experience because I'm so fixated on my busted frames. And still somehow the song and the rhythm of the movement and whatever gave me the space to think about the relationships that I've related it to in the past, and the ways that it feels, the words feel different in the present. And all of a sudden I'm just like, I can feel the tears running down my face. It's a really I think for folks who are able to connect to the game emotionally, it's one of the yeah it is one of the stages that makes the game just truly incredible.
Yeah. It's iconic. It's like it needs to be in a museum,
Yeah.
honestly. Like this is one of those moments in games. I wanted to read the lyrics because I think what's also really just it's so good to chew on is the feeling of freedom and happiness and joy as the music plays, but the lyrics themselves are heartbreaking, honestly. The first verse says, I can still recall trudging through the cold December snow. We didn't know that it was the end, that the saddest story ever told would unfold. What? What? It goes on to say, don't you know how it goes? You leave me sad and scarred. Broken glass, smoke and ash. I guess that's what we are. Ugh. Yeah. So,
I
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the I went to a chamber music performance last night that from an organization called Chamber Music Northwest. It is a like premier chamber music organization. They bring in people from literally all over the world to perform, particularly for this month where they have kind of a concert, a special like concert season.
Yeah.
Some of the I mean like I didn't realize how good movie soundtrack performances are until sitting in a room with people who are that level of good, and you're just like, there's something they're doing with these instruments that like, sorry, you just need 20 years to do it. Like, sorry, you just need 30, like, or you need to be some like, you know, some of the 15, 20, you know, they're freaking 20, 25 years old, but just masters at how they utilize these tools. And they have no conductor. This is a like a 13-piece chamber music, whatever, right? They're playing 3 pieces from West Side Story. And the third piece that they play in this particular sequence was, I think it's called America. For folks who aren't familiar with West Side Story, and I'm only very minorly familiar, so I'm only going to talk about it a little bit because I'm going to mess something up. It's a sort of a take on Romeo and Juliet that's staged in like New York between a white guy and a Latina woman.
Yeah. Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole sort of like gang versus gang thing that goes on. It's a musical love story that, again, riffs a bunch on kind of some Romeo and Juliet vibes. But this particular song, America, like, is this fun, snappy, like, listening to the music. It's like, it's engaging and exciting. And it's got this sort of like heat to it that very much is about like is very much infused by like Latin music, right? And when you get to the lyrics, they talk about like everything's fine in America, right? And until a Puerto Rican person comes in and says, if you're all white, right, everything's right in America. If you're all white in America, like the presence of the lyrics is meant to provide this contrast that you don't get if you just live on the vibes of the song. And it's so amazing the way that Begin Again gives you some of that same thing, but it does feel dramatic and determined. Like just hearing the song, you can feel like something is wrong and intense. But yeah, it opens up a totally different experience with that music when you bring in those lyrics. And it actually, the last part of this big rant is it actually made me think about how amazing video games are in that they give you the opportunity to have so many layers that you stick on top of each other, right? That it's not just, if you take the words out of America, you have a completely different experience. One that a room full of people may just think, oh, this is just fun and jovial and whatever, and you're missing an entire level of like, this is America. Like, this is the way that everything will feel like it's okay, except when some people who have some different experiences get to come in and offer you clarification. There's a layer there. And then like thinking about Sayonara Wild Hearts, just the music, just the audio, right, is one thing, or the instrumentals, but adding on the lyrics is different. And then adding in the visuals is different. And then adding in the gameplay, the idea of you interacting with it, it all makes it different somehow. And it's really powerful art because of all those layers. It's not to say that any one of those layers doesn't have its own power, but there is that, whole is the more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think that's why, especially this playthrough, I feel like learning about the arcana, listening to the music, like I have been embedding myself in this game for the last month. And that first time I replayed Begin Again and seeing, the city, earth crack, falling from your feet. You're in a free fall as the world is burning, and yet there again, it's like you're not mad about it. You're embracing it in a lot of ways. And I think, especially when thinking about relationships and the kinds of relationships that this particularly could represent, where you're in the free fall and you're going for it and you're okay in the moment, because like the song says, like, I'm just happy to begin again. I'm just happy just to do it again. It hits so different when you have all of those layers all at the same time. And when you're, again, through the short experience of the game, given the opportunity to revisit it and actually absorb all of the layers individually and then as a whole, it makes such a huge difference. God, yeah, this is one of my favorite levels in any game ever.
Honestly, like this is that I don't know how many times over the course of our friendship we have talked extensively about this stage.
This one.
Tired voices in a minor key on repeat. Like it's just like it's really wonderful. And I do think that like one of the things that I really love about, I don't know, I think it's just a real talent of songwriting to be able to have this theme that revolves around beginning again and having this lyrical journey that moves from like doing absolutely anything you humanly possibly can to suffer through the opportunity to not let this relationship go, to finally getting to the point where you're like recognizing like I'm just no, that's not it, like. And there is something that also feels strange in knowing that like I'm Daniel Olson is the composer for all the, and there is something that like for the game to be so heavily like queer coded and femme, and then also to you're like there's a version of I can't remember the name of it, but there's a version of the soundtrack that is performed by like it's more acoustic, performed by the writers, and so you hear it in this more mask voice, and it feels strangely disorienting in a way. I don't know what it is, but either way, a lot of power in that song.
Yeah. And as we move, you drive through the city, the level ends, and we move into our second heartbreak. And this is Moon Passage. We're in a tunnel again, but I did find it interesting. This is the first time our perspective changes within this sort of interlude state. We move from being behind our character, our protagonist, to a side-scrolling view. At least the first time our perspective changes in the tunnel.
Sure.
And we unlock the moon card, and we meet basically like the howling wolves. I forget the wolves. Yeah. Just as the like, let me get my tarot definitions out because I did take notes on this. The moon card that we unlock is sort of like a setting of this location, means feeling fear, believing illusions, having unrealistic expectations, or chasing after a fantasy. It can also be interpreted as feeling lost, losing purpose, or wandering aimlessly. So a little bit of context, because we are moving into, after that heartbreak, into Woe Woe Woods, which is such a fun name. I really enjoy that title in particular. I think what's interesting is the forest is, as a setting, just such a transformational environment, which coupled with the magical girl transformation that our protagonist individually went through, the forest is like in movies, musicals, books. This is a setting that always means like it's a place for transformation. It is also a place for the unknown, for mysteries, for isolation. It's a place where you can lose yourself. And in this first Forest Ghost track, we have what I don't think happens really again ever. The Emperor card shows up, turns into a stag, and you hop off of your bike to ride the stag, who helps guide you through at least the first part of this forest. This is a card that represents like determination and perseverance. It's also, I wrote down a rare masculine presence in the game. And so I wanted to talk about this and get your thoughts on the Emperor card showing up here.
Yeah, I do think it's a really interesting it is really interesting because there are not very many the Hierophant, I think you had mentioned earlier, and then like the stag shows up and helps for a little bit, and then it's gone. You're like
tuxedo mask.
That's it.
Of.
Yeah, right.
Tuxedo light. Right.
Except this stag actually does something.
It actually helps. Yeah.
But you didn't do anything. It's my favorite meme. The I think what's interesting, again, I do a lot of my read here through mechanics. The stag to me feels like kind of it's kind of hard to control. The bike to me feels like really precise, but it's also moving really fast through this tense flooded forest. Like it's hard a harder space to navigate.
Yeah.
Riding the stag, you still have this opportunity for control, but it feels a little laggy, like a little drifty, because the stag is a being of its own.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to like have this opportunity to be with another being that helps give you guidance, gives you determination, gives you you skills. Like throughout the rest of the game, it's interactions with tools that give you the ability to navigate space. But this does feel like the one time that you have another being in your corner, a best friend, somebody who is like helping you in ways that you would not have been able to get yourself.
That's the read I had as well, where this felt very much like a friend that's in your corner helping you kind of lift some of that heavy load, after the immediate aftermaths of the heartbreak.
Thanks, Jenny.
And really just making sure that you're in a place where you can start reflecting and approaching like what happened with the relationship.
I really thought you were going to say begin again.
No. So you can begin again.
Yeah. But no, I do. I think that is, really, really sharp. Being able to have a lot of the tools is great, but like I think, you don't make this journey alone.
Yeah. And what I think, like, literally in this level, you have like bridges that you're crossing, which I'm like, that is on the nose. I love it. But you're literally crossing these bridges and leaping over gaps that you're trying to make before you confront this heartbreak head on.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there are bridges, but the bridges aren't fully constructed. And like if you were on the bike, there are no ramps. Like anytime that you jump with the bike, there's a ramp so you could actually do the thing. If you didn't have the stag, you would die. Doesn't matter if you have the bike, you would die. Yes. Like you need a friend who can make those leaps for you. Even though there are some pretty incredible leaps that you make even on foot, like, whatever. But like suspend your disbelief for a minute, okay?
Yeah. Resuspend and then suspend again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Suspend again.
Yeah, suspend again. Is the sequel track, the B-side that nobody ever knows.
Nobody asked for.
We then transition into the next level, which is Forest Dub. One of my personal favorites, because it's like an Alice in Wonderland trip a little bit, and I'm a big Alice in Wonderland fan. You meet the wolves. It's a group of 4. They are also, I think, on bikes as well, kind of like the Dancing Devils, and they are out. They're out to get you. Again, it's still not as malicious or as sort of intentional as some of the later characters that we encounter, but these are the ones. They start this level off by like blowing a powder on you, which feels very like they are altering your ability to interpret reality. And you go on a bit of a trip. You're like hopping with your bike on mushrooms. They're small. You can grow big with the toadstools. And that feels slightly more like intentionally aggressive towards you, I would say, than the first group that you encountered. By the end of the level, they howl and they turn into a group of like robotic wolves, and you continue to like chase them through the forest. I think that's the primary sort of action of this level is you're chasing them.
Yeah, it's a weird stage. I didn't process, I feel like, until this time around, where I actually felt angry at this like you so like she there's this like, oh, we like blow this powder at you and then you go through a drug trip. I'm like, I feel like
Yeah.
I just got dosed. Like
Yeah.
and it's like, leather jacket, cool kids, just try it, just try it. Like,
Everyone's doing
everyone's
it.
doing it, right? Which like again, depending on how is this multiple stages of a single relationship? Is this multiple people, multiple kinds of relationships, whatever. But I just like it was a place where I was like, this feels like y'all do not care. Like you've put me in this position and you don't like everything about the Howling Wolves just feels really cavalier. Like it feels like they're not connected to me, engaged, invested in me at all.
Yeah.
And then put me through this thing that's like kind of fucked up because like they turn into wolves. And then
Yes.
we pull out a gun. And
Yeah. Red Riding Hood could never.
and so it's like there is something that I just like I felt this like this real anger as I playing through Forest Dub and is like because you are chasing them down. Like
Yes.
they're doing all sorts of dodging and whatever, and you're like, no, I am coming for you. And there's a certain point where you're it looks like you're the leader of the pack, right?
Yes.
Like your color schemes are matching. It's like you could almost be one of them, and you're like, nah, not at all, not one bit.
Yeah. Yeah. This, again, with my playthrough this time, feeling through kind of like these are different relationships at this different points in time, whereas the first one felt very like hot and cold in a way that you both felt like you were engaging in. This felt very like you are trying to fit yourself into this relationship.
Yep.
You're trying to be something you're not. You're trying out things that you wouldn't try before. And at the end of the day, it does, like, I felt more anger as well by the end of this. And I think moving into after Forest Dub, there's like Laser. What was it called?
Laser Love.
Laser Love, yeah. In Laser Love, which is the continuation of, this sort of short wolf pack segment, the cards of Judgment and Justice.
Judgment and Justice. Yes.
Which is like, okay. Yeah, so those are what attach to your bike, and those are the guns that you use to shoot the now transformed into robotic wolves. And they
On
multiply
repeat.
too, which is
Yep.
and it's on repeat. So yeah, there is more of a anger on your part and more of like you are seeking again this sense of justice. You are judging them for this action, the actions that they took. I noted Judgment and Justice are also actual Arcana cards in the Major Arcana. So it was interesting to me that Justice is about, yes, like maybe what we traditionally think of our sense of justice. But in addition to like acknowledging the truth of what's happening, it also can mean you are making connections between events. You are assuming responsibilities and maybe even admitting involvement and preparing for decisions for what have to be done. Judgment in the Arcana can also mean or be interpreted as making hard choices, awakening to possibilities, and feeling more inner conviction, which is what we're seeing like mechanically, which is what you pointed out with the gun and you actually taking action beyond just punching, like taking a tool to harm these wolves.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, and it's also Laser Love is so interesting because like you have tons of enemies, right? And these enemies shoot back. Like when you're on the stage, you've got this constant auto fire machine gun that will hit these wolves, but the wolves will return fire if you I believe if you hit them they'll return fire, and they also, if you don't hit them, they will come at you anyways. So you're doing this complex thing of like trying to take them out, but then also trying to dodge the ones that you can't quite take out because you're not going to be able to get enough hits on them to actually like take, to actually kill them because they're coming at you. You can't point the gun. Like mechanically, it's just and it's a fun, I do find it to be a fun stage too.
It's one of my favorites. Like just from a mechanical standpoint, it is a fun one to play. And the music is good the entire way, but this is maybe in my top like 5 sort of tracks, where I'm like, it just feels good. There's like a heaviness to it that also wasn't in Begin Again or any of the Heartbreak 1 levels, where there's this like driving heavier beat that I find just like fun to listen to personally.
Yeah, it does feel really good to be able to come in with a sense of it's not the vengeance card, but it does feel a little bit right. Or I don't know if there is a vengeance card, but it feels like an iteration of vengeance, which it is also really interesting thinking about all of these discussions that we're having about the ability to sort of strike back, to aggress, to be able to push forward, knowing how the game closes with Wild Hearts Never Die, but we'll get there when we get there.
This area, Heartbreak 2 in the Woods, ends with a track called Dead of Night. This is like the long boss track. The biggest difference is you're in first-person perspective for chunks of this, I think for the majority of this level, which puts you in the driver's seat as an individual, as a player, in a way that the other levels have not.
Right.
And I wonder also if that's why I felt personally more like angry and involved in this relationship, because it wasn't me guiding our heroine and it wasn't me guiding the protagonist. It was like, this is me. And you see in first person perspective how you're weaving through a claustrophobic level. Honestly, it's very narrow feeling. The trees are closing in. You have these archways or kind of gates that you have to weave it through, and they're narrow. They feel narrow for your bike, and so everything feels like it's like kind of oppressive and coming in for you in a way that has not happened yet in this game.
Yeah, I didn't think about that like your hitbox, I think, extends slightly outside of your camera, which makes sense. In reality, our hitboxes extend outside of our camera. We can be hurt in places that we're not directly looking at, right? But in third person view, it's easier to parse where there's like a narrow space that you can get into. In first person mode, I was almost going to venture it as a criticism of like, that it feels a little less precise, a little less whatever than the third person ones. But I think through that lens, it kind of makes sense. Like it does feel visceral and a little bit more intense and unpredictable. And there are a little bit of like riding on vibes, because I'm pretty sure that if I move this way, we'll be all right. It's a really cool context change, and I do think it makes it feel more personal. Like the third person gives you an opportunity to detach a little bit.
And this is where the remaining wolves in the wolf pack, they create this giant mech. So keeping in with the Sentai theming here, you have this giant mech that you take on as an individual on a bike. You don't get a giant mech. So it feels also like the power balance feels very uneven, where it's like they have turrets, they have these giant rockets that are kind of coming down on you, and you're just regular sized human on a regular sized bike. So again, the intensity and kind of what we talked about earlier with how this feels like a relationship where they don't regard you even as the same, they don't regard you as the same size. You don't have a mech. That feels very apparent in this boss battle to me.
I wonder, I've noticed you mention the Dancing Devils and the Howling Wolves both as like Sentai, but then we kind of started the we started the discussion with this like magical girl transformation, right? And so
Yeah.
I wonder like what your thoughts are on that contrast between like, you know, like Sentai also has their sort of their magical boy transformation, right? That for
Exactly.
yeah, folks who are not as familiar, Super Sentai, the Japanese series that like the Power Rangers over here in the West,
Hmm.
are heavily cribbed from. Yeah, what do you make of sort of the difference
Yeah.
between those two, whether the two genres as a
Mm,
whole or the ways they might relate to the game?
that's a really good question because I think there's this initial sort of reflex reaction I have where I'm like, well, Magical Girl is so femme coded and so feminine, whereas Sentai is very much like it reads a bit more masculine, is the way that we've like cultured it in our society. And even though there are like girl characters in Sentai
Yeah, of
shows,
course, of course.
but I think yeah, that's a really good point where it's like there is a bit more of like the overt like action on the Sentai side where I think Magical Girl shows, while they have action, maybe focus more on the characters and their personal transformation towards what they are meant to be. Whereas Power Rangers and Sentai shows are more about like the enemy of the day, and it's less about their personal reflection. Like they reflect as characters, but it's not about them becoming necessarily in the same way that in Sailor Moon she's becoming like eventually Queen Serenity in Sailor Moon. I,
Hmm.
I don't get that sense. I am less of a Sentai like watcher. I've only watched Power Rangers really.
Yeah.
And even that was only like the first couple seasons.
Oh, yeah. Missed
You
out.
are definitely the Power Rangers expert of the two of us. So I'm curious what you think, because that, from my interpretation, like I feel like there is more inner reflection happening on the side of the magical girl versus the Sentai shows, but I could be wrong. So you feel free to correct me.
I don't. I mean, like, I think there is I, I similarly have less magical girl experience. I watched
Hmm.
like a couple seasons of Sailor Moon back on USA Network, um, but like, I think it feels interesting to me that many Sentai shows, especially if we think like Power Rangers or whatever, are about like groups working together. And
Hmm.
then like in contrast, we have this like singular magical girl energy in here. Even though like obviously we look at like Sailor Senshi, that kind of thing. Like
Right.
there's oftentimes teams of magical girls. So,
Right.
but it does feel like there's there's a bigger focus on the toys with Sentai. Like there's a bigger
Mm,
focus on like, and we got the big mech and we got the whatever, right?
yeah.
It feels like the progress that's made is not always through sort of like, this is me as a person doing a growth. This is,
Right.
we did this thing and we uncovered this thing and unlocked or whatever, and now we have the tool to beat the bad. Here in Sayonara Wild Hearts, we're usually given the tool to beat the bad from the jump. This isn't, oh, we've gotten into this fight and oh no, we're not gonna make it, and then somebody shows up and says, here's a giant robot, go win now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, this particular encounter is going to require a motorcycle. Here is your motorcycle. The encounter is going to go be challenging anyway, right? Like we don't go
Yeah.
through that's again, it feels like a sort of destabilization of the hero's journey where it's like, no, we're setting you up ready for the challenge from the jump. The
Mm,
challenge is the part that gives the learning. It's not the like, oh, and I just grinded with not enough tools long enough that when I finally got the tool, everything was okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think there's something in there to maybe parse out. It would be interesting to think more about
Yeah,
that
because I'm trying to
contrast.
think of like the tarot cards that you get that are from like justice and you know your guns
Yeah, the
and the
Wheel of
chariot
Fortune.
that comes and
Hmm.
Wheel of Fortune. Like it does feel like they come about more from whatever internal like you have willed them towards you or you have
Hmm.
brought them towards you, which fits a little bit more like the magical girl evolution where it's more about her emotional state, like in Sailor Moon
Yeah.
specifically. It's more about her emotional state and her ability to recognize like essentially like a higher emotional intelligence. And usually it's something about friendship and love and how we all need each other to
Love
like
it.
make it happen. Exactly. But like the more she leans into it and realizes it, that allows her, she has a compact, is what she starts with. And that's when the compact will evolve to reflect her emotional state. And so I wonder, now that you're mentioning this, if Sayonara Wild Hearts does lean into, for your heroine, the main character, that evolution of you have this emotional awareness that has allowed these tools to like evolve with you and come to you. So that's how you have them, potentially.
I like
This
that.
is me just off the cuff thinking.
No, I totally like that. That makes a lot of sense. Thinking of sort of the deck of tarot cards as the heroine's compact. I like that.
How cute.
That's super cool.
Which brings us to Heartbreak 3, which is, I think, one of the most unique interludes. This is where we start deviating from the tunnel, I
Yeah.
guess, because we have actually with Heartbreak 4 another really interesting one. We unlock the Tower, which is a tarot card that means you're going through a sudden change or release, whether through anger or an emotional outburst of some sort. It can mean falling or like a blow to the ego, but it can also mean revelations or like starting to expose what was hidden. What was interesting about this is our first heartbreak interlude that moves upward. We have a spiral staircase that we're moving upward. And you actually, at some point, I think you grab the card that represents the heartbreak, which is the Lovers. And you are like, that card is pulling you up this tower. And you have this top-down perspective where you're moving up the tower and sort of navigating that way, which is yet another perspective change that we hadn't gotten yet in the game.
Yeah. I didn't notice it until this playthrough that like the lovers card, when you grab it, like you are not cool. Like you are so cool during so many of the places where you're traveling, like you get to superhero land on a card and then
Yeah.
surf around or whatever, and you are so cool all the time until the lovers card shows up and you're just gripping it with one hand for dear life.
Yes.
It's and which is also kind of weird because the rest of the tower you get to feel super cool. Like when you're running through when you're running up the spiral,
Yes.
it's a lot of timed button presses where like there's you jump on a thing, you jump through a gap, you jump from a pillar to a rotating thing, and you'll jump into the middle of it and jump up at the perfect time and then jump out at the perfect time. Like you are so in control for most of the tower until that damn card shows up. And then you just, again, just like it really does feel like you're just hanging on for dear life. And it feels more like the card is guiding you through the stage rather than you influencing the travel.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting to me is that in the tower, you start on your bike, but there is a section where, like you said, you yourself are the one powering through it. You are running upstairs, and it's incredible because you do feel really strong and you're like, I don't even need the bike. I can just do this by myself. And so it's interesting where you have this almost like within the narrative of this game, you have this like, you have a high and then you have a low. And then this is like another high where you're like, oh, maybe I have got my shit together. Maybe
Yeah, right.
this is it. I don't have any more heartbreaks because I'm cool. I've got everything under control. And you don't.
And you don't.
And you don't. With the Lovers, this card can mean romantic love, but it also can mean any kind of union or any kind of bond. It's also about establishing, this is what I found fascinating because it relates to when we get to parallel universes, especially. It's about establishing personal belief, questioning received opinions, figuring out where you stand, and staying true to yourself. Which, as again, someone who does not know the Arcana, and this is sort of my first time reading through the cards, I found incredibly informative, especially moving into the level once we get to like Hearts and Sword, which is our first true introduction to the lover.
Yeah.
Or the lovers.
Yeah, that's a really I didn't know that idea of and I think the game does a wonderful job of reinforcing that
Mm-hmm.
theme of perspective and the power of maintaining your own perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It is a I think as I like reflect, it is the stage sequence that I think I actually enjoy the most or like appreciate the most. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it is pensive in a way. Its challenge doesn't come because it's like fast arcadey whatever. It's a bit of a head trip.
Mm-hmm.
I remember how many times I failed these stages on my first playthrough.
Yes.
And a big part of it was, oh, I wasn't maintaining my own perspective. I was caught up in, ooh, I don't need to, I'm going to have to sit with that one. Great. I was caught up in the world that was being shaped for me by
Mm-hmm.
the stereo lovers. I
Yeah.
was not detached. I didn't have sort of the bird's eye view enough to recognize, oh, this is what's going on and this is where I need to be in the midst of it all.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think the Hearts and Swords parallel universes mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, Forrest Dub walked so parallel universes could run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is like for me, parallel universes is up there with Begin Again. Like maybe Begin Again is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Parallel universes and maybe tied with the last song of Wild Hearts Never Die. Parallel
Yeah.
universes, Wild Hearts are kind of like my top two and three,
Yeah.
I would say. And for those exact reasons that you mentioned, I think where I found really interesting this time playing through, just to set a little bit of the scene, you are in
Mm-hmm.
a city called Twilight Cry Sky, or the environment is called Twilight Cry Sky. It's a city, but it's more oppressive than the first one in the sense that the buildings, there's like archways that kind of cover, so you're not getting sort of the unbridled sort of city line with no with sky that's free. There's like the horizon line is broken with a lot of buildings and archways and things. There's a lot of windmills and fans,
Mm-hmm.
even in the course itself, that kind of like blow you around, and really makes it easier for you to lose control a little bit and lose your own sense of perspective and self, like you were saying. And this is the one, in terms of just relationships and thinking about what each heartbreak represents in terms of relationship, I was like, this feels very manipulative. This feels very like almost gaslighty in a way,
Mm-hmm.
where this character starts as one opponent and she gives you the sword that you break her apart with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know. That for me, I'm just like, you gave me the tool to split you in two,
Mm-hmm.
and you are using this, it felt like to me, using this as the reason to be able to like change my
Oh.
reality. Like you said, oh, you broke me in two.
Oh.
Now I'm going to start messing with what you are perceiving. And so for me, this felt so like of that kind of relationship where they almost lay the weapon in front of you because they know you might take that, and
Right.
it escalates the tensions and the fighting within that relationship.
That's a I think that's a really smart read. Because the first few seconds of like them handing you the sword, like when you are just engaged in sword play and you're, pairing each other's swings, things are fine, right? And they
Yeah.
get to maintain their experience. But when you actually like slice through, that's when things start to shift. And I also think that it's interesting that if I am remembering correctly, it feels like the perspective shifts don't necessarily feel that antagonistic. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're I think parallel universes you're on the bike.
Yeah.
Or wait, and I was gonna say maybe I'm jumping ahead. Because Hearts and Swords is yeah, is where you go through the split,
Yeah.
and then now you've got the
The
cool
snap.
snap,
Yeah.
right?
God, it's so good. Yeah.
And yeah, I think yeah, for me, parallel universes is really interesting because it's not so antagonistic. It's a
Mm-hmm.
slow, vibey song,
Yep.
and a lot of the reason why you crash is just it's not because they like threw something in front of you. It's that
Yeah.
the stage exists in two different perspectives for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
right? The on every beat,
Yep.
the stage will totally transform, right?
Yeah.
So what looked like it was a clear pathway becomes a wall. What became a wall was a clear pathway. What a place where there was like a big heart to get, there's suddenly nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
like it's just incredibly disorienting, and it's just you trying to figure out how to navigate these rapid shifts in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not until the end, like the place where the antagonism shows up
Mm-hmm.
is at the end of parallel universes where like, and this is where calling out your switch to first person, right? The camera like zooms in, not close. I don't think
Yes.
it's not first person, but it zooms
Yeah.
in close enough that
It
you're
zooms in
like,
close.
no,
Yeah.
we're here. And you can see the heroine pick up her fingers and snap into that
Yes.
third perspective, your perspective. And oh boy, that's not okay.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so powerful. And I agree. I think when I think of like this sort of like manipulation in a relationship where it's like they're saying the reality is one thing and then they're switching and saying it's another and it's not what you're saying. It's never like whenever those situations have happened, it's never been overtly antagonistic. It's always it is made to feel like no, but we're pals. I'm
Right.
here. I'm trying to have a dialogue with you.
Yep.
I'm trying to listen. Like that kind of feeling. And even in the way, like this is the first time I think our opponent or our antagonist is facing us. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're chasing them technically, through the structure of the game, but they're not running away. They're facing
Right.
and kind of going backwards very calmly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost more infuriating than like the wolf pack
Yeah.
because at least I knew where we stood. Whereas with this relationship, it's like you don't quite know where you stand at
Yep.
any given point, really.
Well, and the again, thinking about the camera perspective, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I think I relate to this. I think I relate to this read because I think this is something that I struggle with a lot in
Hmm.
my personal relationships, romantic and otherwise, is that when if you are cerebral enough, it feels like there's no real threat.
Hmm.
The first few times that I played through it and I didn't quite understand the rhythm of the shifts and the whatever, and I'd crash and my score would rack and whatever. But there's this comfort that comes from I understand the rhythm. I am in sync with this rhythm. My view now in third person mode is
Mm.
far enough up and removed that I can see ahead on the stage. And so long as I'm doing the mental calculations of remembering where the road actually is, this is actually fine. Like I can and you know what? I actually feel kind of cool being able to navigate through these spaces and to be able to get the high
Hmm.
score. And I know that you're about to shift into this other thing that's going to make it look like I'm going to crash, but that's okay because I read this ahead of time. So like it's fine. right?
The emotional energy that it takes to navigate that for so long. Like, this is an exhausting level to play,
Yep.
not because the level is hard,
Yep.
but because you're constantly having to think ahead.
Yep.
And relationships like that, oof.
They're, but when I don't know, there's a part that, yeah, again, I'll make sure I save some of this for my therapist, but like I think there is a sense of like there is a feeling, the feeling of mastery, I think,
Right.
is part of what makes all of the stages in this game feel like you feel like you have grown because you now know how to navigate this thing, right? And in the past, learning how to navigate this thing also means walking in with a bunch of aggression and confidence and tools and judgment and justice. And this time it's much calmer, right? Like you've been yanked away. This perspective has been you've been holding on for dear life to the lover's card, and now you're trying to find your own perspective. You're trying to make and it doesn't even. It's just like, nope. There's just like a third snap, because in theory, if the duality of, right, and it also probably there is a significance in the sort of like almost yin yang representation of the stereo lovers being split, and the having one dark mask, one light mask, but there's this element of like, even it's not even I'm trying to tell you that your perspective is wrong. I think
Yeah.
there can be a temptation to say my third perspective is the truth, the right perspective, and that is not totally accurate either, because all three perspectives, like when you're moving around in space in the dual perspectives,
Yeah.
that's still moving around in true space. You're still picking up hearts, you're still doing the whatever. But it's
Yeah.
like when you decide to you're like, hey, can we have three? I think mine has some too. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Wow.
nope.
Yeah.
There's only space for those two, which is, again, I'm like, it's so good because the lover's card, one of the bullet points that I wrote down, again, just to like pull it back in there, is it's about questioning the received opinions. And it's like, it's not just about that there's two realities. It's what are you doing with the realities that they're presenting you? Do you accept them as true? Because that's a whole different case. Or, like you said, if you bring your own, what are they doing with it? Are they also in turn questioning their own opinions, questioning what you've brought them and interacting with it? Or are they completely shutting it down? Yeah. And this is another longer level, not parallel universes, but it transitions into the longer level, which is called Mine, where you begin to more actively fight with stereo lovers, with the swords. They have two, you have one. And the lyrics for this, there's a line that I just, a verse actually, where it's verse 2 that says, "Won't you be my lovely liar? You're the story I desire. It doesn't matter if it's fake, a love to own for owning's sake." Like, oh my gosh. And there's another line that says, "What isn't real could never fade. We prefer the masquerade." Just such good lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting because, again, to me the lyrics feel more cerebral, like the words are, the masquerade, the alliteration of lovely liar, the like, it feels so much more in the head than like begin again feels like, no, I'm giving you, these are concrete scenarios. We're walking through the snow, another phone call where we're going through the same tired whatever. Very, very grounded, very concrete. And so much of parallel universes, that this sequence, the stereo lover sequence, feels very cerebral, but the conflict in Mine is intense. Like,
Yes.
it's constant sword play. It's giant swords crashing down into the street and like causing these giant disruptions. And like,
Right.
for as much as it can you know, again, it was slower, soft, calm, seems almost like, oh, it's fine. But this conflict is visceral,
Yeah.
in a way that, like, even going into the Little Devil sequence in Zone 5, I actually, as I'm reflecting, I'm like, and maybe it's just my personal projection, but it does feel like, to me, the most visceral, the most like threatening
Yeah.
conflict is with the stereo lovers.
Agreed. I actually wrote, they feel like they're going scorched earth on us.
Yeah.
Where it's like the heartbreak of this and the end of this relationship is so much more. Yeah, I guess scorchers, they're literally breaking the roads that you are trying to drive down. So it's not just let's break up, it's somewhat amicable, let's part ways, not think about each other, have it be neutral. This is, I want you to also hurt. Like, I need you to hurt after this, is the feeling that I got from the end of this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is emotionally, I think I think maybe is the hardest relationship, even more so than Little Death and like the end level, where I feel the most, I guess, hurt, I guess, also. Whereas maybe the other relationships, I felt anger, I felt like, it was a spark, but in a flame that went away quickly. But this is one that hurts, a bit more enduring than the other ones.
Yeah, and I think it is a really fitting then transition into what we see in sequence 4, where I had the distinct thought of like, oh, I got played. Like, I don't know what it is. But yeah, there's something about this particular sequence, and I think it is because it's slow. It's pensive. It feels safe and cool, and to a certain extent, you're performing, but not. I don't know. It doesn't feel like you're under threat the same way, right? Like when you're dealing with the howling wolves or the dancing devils, they're literally taking shots at you. It is very easy to identify that from the beginning they are doing things that are not okay. But in Hearts and Swords, they give you a sword and you both get to sit here and you're dueling, and God, does it feel good to like interact with somebody on your level, right? To have that space of like what feels like skilled conflict. And I always talk about in how I like want a relationship that feels like iron sharpening iron, like this idea of like training together, getting better together. And then you take that one shot that like
cuts
a little too deep, and now there's some other stuff to deal with. And who yeah, sorry, I could spend a lot on this one, but yeah, I think it is. It's one of the strongest sequences, and it makes sense that it's here in the middle of the game.
Yes. Yeah, pacing is perfection in this game, honestly. Which in Heartbreak 4, this is called the Hermit Warp Way. The Hermit card is a major arcana card. And this one is setting up the scene for this sequence of songs where it's about being introspective, seeking understanding, withdrawing from the world, and sometimes receiving a little bit of guidance from a teacher or a mentor. But really, it's about that need to understand. And this is a very reflective set of songs, of tracks. We kick off with Night Drift, which is in the Desert of Doubts. It is, you unlock Chariot, which is your really sweet, what is it, roof retro car.
Yeah, it feels a little Outrun. Yeah. Real quick, is Heartbreak 4 the sailboat, or is it Heartbreak 5?
I think it's Heartbreak 5.
Okay, then
yes, because that's the ocean of death, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you're in open skies, no buildings. You see like what is it, like the electricity
Yeah,
poles,
like power
but like
lines.
there's power lines. Thank you. There's open desert. It's just you like literally just drifting down a highway.
Yep.
Nothing. I don't think anything obstructs you at this level.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of like ramps you can jump over.
Yeah.
It does feel that I think there's a part of me that really related to the stage being from the Midwest in particular, that like, and I obviously like these are I believe is Smogo out of Sweden? Yeah, I would imagine with the
I think
falafel.
so.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
I don't know sort of what the relationship is, but I feel like the discussion about the quote unquote road trip is seen as a very American, oftentimes like
Yeah.
a very American stereotype trope, whatever. But like being from the Midwest, where like we really do have had like space where it's just like, especially when I was younger and gas was not cheap but cheaper, the idea of just like filling up the tank and just driving down country roads, or just
Yep.
who knows, where am I going to go that's 3 hours from here, whatever, you just like throw a tape on. And I feel like there have been games like Keep Driving and things recently that are really kind of leaning into some of that. But this feels like a combination of where we start getting a lot of our video game references, because again, the stage feels very like sort of Outrun, whatever. You can turn hard enough that you drift and then you get more points for drifting. Like, and it's a night sky. It's really empty. Like you get to just feel cool navigating through these spaces, picking up the whatever, trying to drift to build up the extra score. It feels very powerful, and it's interesting because it is also this hermited space where like you are feeling like you're taking control of this environment where you're the only one present. And it makes sense after the sort of massive hit of Stereo Lovers.
Yeah. It's nice. It's like, it's the I'm going to focus on me
Yeah, right.
moment.
Yep.
A little bit. And Night Drift leads us into Reverie, which I think is such a great title for this level. You meet a character who I presume is like the hermit representative. And she's just sitting in the middle of the road wearing a VR headset. And she, I think, transforms you into
a cartridge. Yep.
Like a Game Boy looking cartridge,
Yep.
and puts you into the headset, transforming you into basically like another layer of surreal. Like we're already in a fantasy world. Now we're like deeper into another fantasy. We're back in first person again. But what I find really interesting about this level is we don't have connection to a body. In the other first person perspectives, you can see your hands on the motorcycle. You can see and feel a sense of your body. In this level, you are just kind of floating through the VR ether.
Yeah.
It feels very, very daydreamy. And like, again, with the title of Reverie, it's like that is being lost in your thoughts. That's about being lost in a fantasy. And so you are actually like losing yourself in this sort of VR scape. In this area. It also made me think a little bit where I'm like, it could be nice because this is a work on yourself moment. It also potentially though could be like, how much does this go into working on yourself and being like solitary for a good reason, and how much of this is maybe a little bit of escapism and avoidance of what's going on. And I think it is open to interpretation, like so many elements of this game, depending on how you're playing and what you're bringing to this experience. It could go a little bit either way.
Yeah, this is where I have a little bit of, I take a little bit of liberty in trying to figure out, like, especially in that, like, is this one relationship? Is this multiple relationships? And I think it's interesting of the hermit being a relationship with yourself. And, being turned into the cartridge, that kind of thing. And I really appreciate that idea of like Reverie being, you're right. You have no body. Everything, the mechanics feel super floaty, trying to figure out how to navigate these stages that like you're still continually moving forward, but it doesn't feel like you anymore. Right. I also think it's interesting noticing some of what feel like the like racial representations of our characters over
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
That I feel like the stereo lovers are kind of like vaguely Asian coded, which then, you know, add on the yin yang thing feels like it's like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of, does
Yeah.
it feel a little, and this is the brownest person, well, with the exception of one of
I
the,
think one.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of the dancing devils.
Yes.
I think this is the kind of the brownest person that we have, and it is. I don't know how to deal with some of the spaces in here because I think there's a certain amount of
Right.
like maybe it's like a thirsty like everybody's toxic, so like everybody's there's a problem one way or another. But it felt interesting to me to be in this stage where like the phrase occurred to me like I'm being played right now. Like I'm in this space, I'm going through a thing, but I'm not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something about that stage that like get the sequence, getting those video game references that are like, oh, it's fun. Here's some Tetris, here's some whatever.
Right.
Here's but it also feels bad and disconnected. It does feel like the video games as escapism. It feels like this feels like the space where and we've all done it. I've got multiple games where I'm like when I play this game a bunch of times, I if I'm playing this game a lot, there's a problem.
I know. There's something.
Yeah.
I should be addressing.
Yeah.
That's so real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I've oscillated between. I think this playthrough, I felt this was more like you said, dating yourself, personally introspective. I think there have been other times where I felt like, is this maybe some sort of like really disconnected rebound kind of relationship? Like, is this just someone that you're filling time with?
Yeah.
And you actually don't. Kind of the opposite of the wolves. Like, you don't actually connect with this person, and you are just there. So yeah, I've oscillated between those primary interpretations. What's interesting is Reverie is like within almost like the VR headspace.
Yeah.
And the next level, the world we knew, is at the front of the VR headset, which I thought was such an interesting perspective change and choice, where you're not in her head or in your head, but you're still like in this virtual reality world, but it's like more apparent because I think you can see like the top and bottom of the face. So it's like it's becoming again a bit more tangible, even though you're not totally out.
Right. Yeah, and even it's also interesting because this is also a very retro sequence. Like everything gets to be these like kind of raster, like the very polygon graphics feels if you're familiar with like Tempest or Battle Tanks, like
Yes.
and so it's weird to not feel like you're being knocked down a peg, like going back to you got to go back to the basics. Like this is it's cool that you got to do the fancy motorcycle, the whatever, but like here like it's Pac-Man again, like
Yep.
and Pac-Man is still a fascinating, challenging game but like it is weird to, and actually now that I think about it, like it does reaffirm to me that just the intensity of stereo lovers and the like which I think does a weird thing to kind of like undercut the little death, but actually no, maybe it kind of reinforces it, but we'll get there when we get there. But I think that Reverie giving us that headspace to like really detach in and get us set up for the world we knew, which to me is another heartbreaking song, especially when you sit with the lyrics. Yeah, really wonderful.
Yeah. And the world we knew, I have the lyrics up here.
I knew you would.
Yeah, so just to read the first verse, just to start. I'm too young to remember when the world was alive. I'm too old to start changing and too tired to remind. The world we knew, and it's too late to start anew. It goes on to say, they say begin again, but I'll take any fragments I can find. They say begin again, but I'll treasure any fragments left behind. It's such a, like, I feel like I feel two ways because this song is both heartbreaking, but I felt like this time when I played, there was some slight optimism that I could see. So the first interpretation I had was about like holding on to things that are no more. Like you're just going to take any fragments you can find of what remains and just hold on to them because you are too tired and you are unable to begin again. It's like the opposite of the resiliency we talked about, where yeah, you fell down, the relationship didn't go so great, but you're going to play the level again and practice until you can find the mini cards, right? Like that begin again energy is lost. And so that's typically how I interpret the song, is it's a bit more heartbreaking. I feel like there's a part of it where I'm like, man, and again, the Bungie stuff, like thinking about history and not wanting to leave fragments behind. I feel like there's a part of me that says, I think you shouldn't be afraid, and you shouldn't think it's too late to start anew. It's never too late to begin again, but I do think treasuring the fragments that have been left behind is an important thing to carry with you. You should find those fragments, and I think to some extent you should choose what to carry. Shout out to 1,000 Times Resist. It all can't fit in the backpack, but you shouldn't begin again totally fresh. You should start with some foundation, and I think there's a part of that where I see the song almost reaching there that I'm like, you're so close, and I feel like you're almost to the optimistic like side of it. And so it made me feel a little bit less heartbroken by the song.
I think for me, it feels heartbreaking in a very bittersweet way. That like it is one to say it's too late to start anew, which at first you're like, ooh, you're gonna like. This is some subtle shade. This is a jab at begin again. Because how else would you begin again, start anew? Like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. And then they literally say in the next line, they say begin again, but I'll take any fragments I can find. And it says, but I'll treasure any fragments left behind. Like, to me, this feels like, and I think there is an element of like, in adulthood, feeling the sort of like, no, it's sad that this breakup is happening. This sucks. And also, like, this has to happen. And, like, it feels kind of like, this, I'm too young to remember. I'm too old to start changing. I'm too tired to remind. Like, this just, it's too late to try this again. And it feels like a certain type of resignation that's like, there is an optimism when we can look at it from the perspective of this is what you need to be able to begin again. You do is to be able to, there is this in the a dear friend of mine kind of gave me a big rundown on like Rider Tarot and the sort of tarot sequence, right? That it's like the interesting thing about the Fool and Death, right, is that they are part of this sequence of things, that there's a story that you're going through, and that this idea of like begin again or whatever is a really great archetype because at the end of the sequence you reach the beginning of a new sequence. So like there is this idea, and to me, in this song, and it should feel sad, and we are approaching, as we know after playing the game, we are approaching little death, right? We're approaching the end of the sequence. Our only ability to confront and move through that comes from being willing to approach, to accept death, and to say like, no, this isn't it. It's time to go.
Yeah, and I think like the devil card, which could feel like inherently evil. Death is also not inherently evil as a card in this situation, where it can mean more of an ending of things, of going through that transition, of finding like that path to change, to be able, like you said, to start something new or to begin again. And so I think this idea of sort of death kind of being the final boss in this game is a really powerful one. And it's one where I think at start you see, you know, little death with the scythe, and you see these you know, this representation, and you think, oh my gosh, is this horrible thing, but it really is the opportunity for you to start the fresh cycle and the fresh journey, which brings us to harp. Oh, did you have anything else?
No, let's go into because I've boy, do I feel different about little death on this playthrough than I have in ones past.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear about that. Okay, well, Heartbreak 5, the final heartbreak of the game. We enter the ocean of death, which again sounds dire, but really this is an opportunity to transition, to change, to move into something new. In the Ocean of Death interlude, you meet the star. This interlude is this open ocean that you're sailing across. The waves are pushing you. It is, like you said earlier, so slow, almost painfully slow, especially compared to every other interlude we've had. The star as a card often represents regaining hope, being inspired, opening your heart, and holding nothing back. So this star that you've gathered prepares you for that encounter with death. You are holding nothing back. You are ready for this final encounter. I want to make sure you have the opportunity in case you had anything.
Yeah, I think this one is so interesting because you're like, this is so incredibly low tech, right?
Yeah.
Like you've spent the other times you're on a super cool star card, you're teleporting, whatever. But this one, like, you're sailing on a boat. And I think there is this element of like the metaphor of the ocean being like, you can mess with the sails and try and work with the wind, but like the waves are going to do what they do. There are these big whirlpools that it's really, especially the first few playthroughs, really easy to get sucked into, especially if you're chasing points. Like,
Yes.
And I think one of the interesting things to me is how counterintuitive it feels to be able to maximize your score. That like you see the hearts moving in a clockwise fashion, and at least for me, the first instinct on first play is to follow the path of hearts and to move around that whirlpool in that clockwise manner. But the way to actually clean up and grab all of the hearts is to move in the opposite direction. And because then they're running into you at the same rate that you're running into them, you double the amount that you pick up. And I also think it makes it easier, since you're picking them up faster and more directly, it makes it less likely that you're going to veer your way into the whirlpool trying to chase more hearts. Like, this is the place where having that slow, that pensive, that analytical that you've built up over the past few stages really does pay off. And you can feel the like sort of dread of this big storm rising, but it kind of feels like, even though you're not on a fancy motorcycle, even though you're on this like little sailboat, like you still have the determination and, like you said, the tools to hold nothing back and walk into the final encounter.
Yeah. There's something about this particular heartbreak, this idea of being willing to ride the waves and being willing to accept things and not fight everything, was a concept that I found really just that really struck me on this playthrough, this latest playthrough, particularly, where it's like sometimes you don't fight things. Sometimes you do have to just sort of accept and let it ride and know when to pick those battles, essentially. Which takes us to, for me, one of the most disorienting areas and levels, which is transonic gravity. We enter into the area called Love Dead City. So we're back in the city now. And this area, you're just constantly flipping upside. The gravity is not just shifting or perspective changing, but you're on the same forward path. You are literally flipping like upside down to the beat. And this is maybe my hardest level.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at this level.
I think we at this point at Transonic Gravity we haven't met Little Death yet, right? Or have we?
I think
are we chasing?
We're chasing, and we meet them meet her at the end. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it does feel like the city from. I kind of have this I don't know headcanon of like Hate Hell being like in the city, and then the sky being like above that same city, a lot of that infrastructure, but now we're kind of running through the clouds of it. Now we've come back down to ground level, and a bunch of stuff has changed and is disorienting and whatever, but also like I'll be damned if I'm not ready for it, right? Like you get to, even when on foot, jump between gravities and you're like, nah, I got this. It feels to me there is a certain amount of like it's absolutely disorienting, but I strangely felt kind of like powerful here. And I also think that like there's also a part of me that feels like it feels like it's supposed to be the big bad boss fight, and I almost find it like slightly childish. Like,
well, because Little Death is actually a child when you finally meet her.
I'm like, so it's very interesting. I also think I don't know if you watched you probably did not, but watch any of the Deadpool movies.
No.
But there's a character, there's a character who like Deadpool ends up kind of like little sistering a little bit, but she's this like teenager who is, doesn't want anything to do with whatever. And he's like, okay, what's your name, kid? And she says, Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Like that's her superhero name or whatever, right? Like, and so there's this element of like transonic gravity and like hate skulls that feels that sort of like teenager resistant as opposed to as opposed to like some of the thoughtfulness or some of the more maturity that feels like you get in Reverie, parallel universes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like at the end of Transonic Gravity, you meet Little Death. Death is a child, and I was like, it's funny to me that Death is blonde. I don't know why. I just thought it was really funny.
This is where I did feel a little bit of there were two things. One, I was like, I can't tell if child or childlike.
Yes.
And so I was like, does seem like a little younger, like, smaller. So like would not be surprised if this is somehow, though I think that makes the read of each of these being relationships like stranger, unless this is the relationship with yourself, which is continuing that relationship with yourself, but and then doing work with the inner child. But this is also the whitest antagonist we have. Like this kid.
So true.
This is a very pale blonde-haired child.
Blonde-haired, yeah.
Full of toxicity. Yeah, sorry.
So toxic. I was like, this is so funny to me. Like, I don't know why. It just, that made me laugh. But yeah, so at the end of this short, this track, I think she opens up, she pulls the card, the Hanged Man,
Yeah.
and the hate skulls come out, which is such a hilarious. Again, hate skulls is so, it is very middle school. Like, what? When I looked up the Hanged Man card, it is about letting go, having emotional releases, turning the world around, changing your mind, putting self-interest aside, and also it can mean putting others first, which is interesting. I think this part I'm still, even upon multiple playthroughs, I think I'm kind of like not entirely sure what the skulls are for me, especially because in the hate skulls segment, you are kind of shooting them, again, very retro game style, where you're not controlling your character moving around, you're controlling the reticle and shooting the skulls like gallery style. So I guess it maybe perhaps is like this opportunity for you to like have these releases. Like you are much more actively shooting. You are focusing less on your own movement and really just like focusing on removing these skulls from your purview. But I think this is maybe one of the shorter tracks that's like a little bit of a lag for me in terms of overall pacing and story.
There is a I may get this wrong, but I believe that my a dear friend of mine who I said earlier was the one who like we did a reading together. She walked me through a number of like tarot things. A big shout out and a lot of love to Mercedes. The Hanged Man, if I am remembering the story correctly, the Hanged Man is an interesting card to pull because it represents a space where there's not a whole lot you can do other than wait. And there's an opportunity, the opportunity for growth, the thing that like you're literally suspended upside down. Like you can't use your own power to push forward. And I feel like I remember there being something in this story of like the Hanged Man having these like birds pecking at him or something like that. Like there's a suffering, and that is the eyelash that's in my eye. There's a certain suffering that you have to figure out how to be able to withstand.
Yeah.
And there is a growth that comes from that ability to be suspended and find that opportunity to be able to push forward. I do think it's interesting that the bow, like you pull out the bow and arrow, and the bow and arrow is the Temperance card, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
And so like it does feel, it is the thing that like as I'm going through and thinking about this last sequence, this that like heartbreak, the little death sequence does to me feel on the whole like it is not quite up to the measure of Stereo Lovers. Of like there is a sense of like going back to this like fast action that seemed like it was so compelling in in the first sequence with the dancing devils, and then you're like, wait, this is not what I thought it was. And so there is this element of like approaching Little Death with a maturity and a sense of power and confidence that I think it makes it very different.
Yeah, I really like that interpretation perspective. So yeah, thank you, Mercedes, for the Hanged Man card lore, because I think especially coupled with the Ocean of Death and how a lot of that was about acceptance, being willing to ride the waves, and in the face of Little Death, having this moment of you're like, okay, I'm kind of biding my time. I'm kind of waiting for these opportunities for me to make my next move or figure out what's going on. But I know right now is not the time for me to necessarily jump into any sort of action. I'm not jumping into conflict. I am trying to, through temperance, recognizing, showing some middle ground and moderation with myself, making sure I'm trying to like recognize what's going on before I make my next move. So I like that reading of it because I haven't necessarily considered that before, especially because again you are static in a way that you haven't been static in this city specifically. So it's a very different feeling revisiting the city and not being on your bike, right? So that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That takes us to the song Inside, which is the second to last sort of longer song. And actually Inside leads into, this is sort of a 2-song heavyweight moment, 2 long songs with lyrics. We've got Inside. Death has, throughout this song, has phases. So little death is no more. We've got like regular death, and then like harpy death, I think. By the end, I think it's a harpy kind of like creature, maybe sort of maybe dragon-esque, because we've also got the dragon that shows up later. But death, this is a more traditional sort of format where we're back kind of on the bike. Death is being chased by us, but also facing us with the scythe. Death is busting out these like sun cards that create these sort of electrical pinwheel things that you have to dodge. And what I really like, though, is that there's sort of this thunderstorm and rain that's happening as well. And that feels very cleansing. Like this is all happening, but the combination of the sun card, which also is the sense of like achieving enlightenment and greatness and self-assurance, even though it's something you have to dodge. The presence of that coupled with this cleansing sort of rain and thunderstorm feels more invigorating and less like, again, less aggressive than, for example, Stereo Hearts, or less like antagonistic than Stereo Hearts.
Yeah, I was trying to find the lyrics for Inside, because I was like, this is one of them where I was like, there are lots of words in here that I do not actually know the lyrics. Like I can hear it and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, there is something really, yeah, I mean, it does. It feels like the end of the sequence. It feels like I am still really fixated on, one of the things that I called out in the last episode was like, if you have a vomit sensitivity, you should be on the heads up. And it feels, slightly whatever, but like literally like half of this stage, right, is you riding on a trail of vomit to eventually like,
it is blue. It doesn't look like actual chunks,
yeah,
just for anyone.
No, it's not. Yeah, to be clear. Yeah, but it is. Yeah,
but it is vomit.
It is. And it's just like, it just felt really, I was like, this relationship is toxic. Like, it is just so incredibly visceral at this point. The amount of toxicity and violence and the lashing out that comes from you pursuing. And I do think that it's really interesting that, like, again, up until we get to our final song, the way that you confront these is head on. Like, everybody's getting punched, right? Like, the willingness to be able to come in with your perspective and to say, this thing is going to hurt you, and I am going to do it, ends up being a really significant, the way that we end up making a lot of this progress. I also think there's apparently there's like, and it's late night and it's Game Boys and it's Too Bright and it's synth noise and it's Charlie and it's milkshakes and it's Carly and it's heartbreaks. And I was like, that can't be the actual lyrics, right?
Really? I don't, this is one that I actually don't know the lyrics by heart. So I don't know if those are the lyrics.
They are. No, I'm looking them up on Genius because I was like, what the fuck does this mean? And then somebody annotated it. It's the one annotation that exists on this thing where they were like, oh, they're references to Charlie XCX and Carly Rae Jepsen.
Yes, which we did mention were direct reference or direct inspirations that they drew from.
Yep. And so it does feel like, yeah, I don't know. There's just so much that's like, oh, the beginning of the verse says, "How long have we been talking? Don't know. It's fine. Don't worry. I don't have anything tomorrow. You should try to close your eyes, though." Like, it's that same late night tired conversation that we're talking about in Begin Again, right? The right words
Yeah.
never come out. It all comes silly, dumb, and all the things I need to say, and all the big words seem to stay on the inside. Like, it is so interesting seeing this as a different view, a sort of alternate perspective of the experiences that we're going through, not in in Begin Again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The end of this song is where Death again has come back as this harpy. You bullseye her with your arrow. I think even maybe Queen Latifah does say like bullseye or something like that, which is kind of funny. And this transitions us into that final song, Wild Hearts Never Die. We have the heartbreak subspace that we enter in on. The bullseye, which is presumably, death still embodied in this eye, is there. The sort of cursed or corrupted arcana are surrounding her, and you're really just taking on this eye through this subspace with everything you've got. And this game does what I love in every game that does this. This is one of my favorite tropes of final boss fights and boss battles, is where you like essentially go back through every major encounter that you've had up until this point, and you find we'll talk more about it, but there's a sense of resolution, and you montage it, and it basically allows you to come back with the full power and full might of everything you've got to be able to defeat this final boss, this arcana, and finish your journey. God, what I love most though is that with this track, you actually not devolve, you untransform back into your sort of normal outfit, like the blue sweater, very basic outfit. And as you transition through the different areas, you encounter these the catalysts for your broken heart. And instead of punching them, which is what you do at the end of each level, you give them a kiss. Oh, it's so good. And what's really especially moving is when you kiss them, you don't continue on as yourself. You like debating, you either merge with them or they move on to the next, and they are the one that becomes you and then kisses the next character in the encounter. And so for me, it's this, again, the dual interpretation of, or maybe three interpretations of you within yourself, kind of like loving those parts of yourself. It could be you reconciling with all of these relationships. And also there's this element of, if you are able to do this within your relationships, it helps feed them in a way that maybe the next relationship they go into, where they could have encountered these things, maybe they also will behave a little differently. So yeah, this whole sequence is just beautiful to me.
Yeah, this is where it's interesting, the conversation that we've had about like magical girls and Sentai and that kind of thing, because I feel like the panel art, the sort of splash art for the level here, like feels to me very, very like Sentai, very magical. Like, this is your team, right? Like, you're the, you know, we've got the lead ranger, whatever, in front of this, this very cool, stylish presentation of all of our main characters. And the idea of like looking back at these relationships and having this space of like, what I originally used to move through this space was the ability to throw a punch, was the ability to stand up for myself, was the ability to define my own perspective and be willing to approach these situations in ways that might not be the kindest, and then be able to get to this place where we can actually come back with kindness. I think that's one of the difficult things thinking about like love and relationships as a whole, is that like the idea of finding these amicable and we're good and we're friends, or we're, can part in good terms or whatever, are ideal. But oftentimes, like, folks are hurt, right? Like, it's worth considering that even though we are the hero and we're the protagonist and we get all these cool things, we're still masked. We're still swinging swords and fighting things, and it'll feel justified. But also, like, if the people on the other side are also people, like, they're getting hurt too. And the ability in Wild Hearts Never Die to find a sort of like resolution with folks and to try and build some sort of compassion for others, really important. And whether you interpret it as connecting with those old relationships and giving them opportunities to heal and move forward, or just like integrating those lessons and the knowledge and the experience for yourself and being able to find love for yourself in all of these spaces, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful level. And just because we've been checking out the lyrics, I wanted to just read a little bit of this one. The chorus says, "This is not how it ends. This is not goodbye, because wild hearts never die. We're just changing our shape like butterflies, because wild hearts never die." And I think one of the things that I thought was interesting, just reading up on this game, was Sayonara as how it's translated. It means goodbye, but contextually, again, this is according to me reading online, so please correct me if anyone speaks Japanese. It's not a goodbye that you'd say casually to a friend that you're going to see again. Like, sayonara is a much more like more permanent, more final, typically goodbye, and it indicates like a bit more separation than just bye, I'll see you later. And so it's interesting to me in terms of like, this is saying goodbye maybe to a certain part of you, but it's not necessarily goodbye to all of you. This is just a goodbye to a phase of life that you're probably not going to go back to again, hopefully. Or if you return, it's going to be different because you are different. And so, I don't know if you know of sayonara or the definition, or have you heard that?
No.
Yeah.
Pardon me. But I do really appreciate that interpretation of like, there are so many things that like get lost when you decontextualize, right? Like, calling it Sayonara Wild Hearts, right? Like, it just sounds to me as a, untrained whatever, it just sounds catchy, right? Like, oh,
Right.
that's, oh yeah, I know that means goodbye and whatever, but it's Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, it's, I don't know, it's compelling. But to recognize that, like, no, this is about, from the jump, saying like, this is a goodbye that is not throwing a person away, a insignificant whatever. Like, there is a context to the usage of this word that comes from familiarity with the language, which does make it feel a little weird then to like slap it into an English title, right?
Right.
But that actually I think is a really cool point to add.
Yeah, I'm looking just at random sort of like Japanese academy ways to say goodbye and why you should not use sayonara. So this academy says in their article that it implies that you don't expect to meet the other person again very soon. There's like an indefinite period. So you don't typically want to use that in normal conversation. So I think, again, there's the part of me that's like, I don't speak Japanese. I don't have the cultural context. So it sounds really cool. But I think thinking about the context, it's like, this is maybe the phase that you're not going to see, hopefully, for quite some time. This is the type of the version of yourself that maybe for an indefinite amount of time you're going to say goodbye to because you have moved on from them. And I think it adds a nice extra layer of meaning to the game. In the conclusion, Queen Latifah is back, and she says that the three arcana, their voices come back up. They say that from the shards of your broken heart, you've been able to restore harmony again in the world, and now you must find harmony of your own. And the game ends with Claire de Lune playing. You go back on the Rainbow Road in sort of this wonderful like transitioning back to reality sequence. We have done our magical journey. We are back now in the real world. Your heart is back and whole in your body. And then they repeat, or she repeats the refrain from the beginning, where at the very start of the game, she said, there was once a young woman who was very happy. But instead, she says, there was once a young woman who fell out of love, asleep, away. And then she found her groove. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it, because it's like, I think what I love about this is that they say out of love, but they also say asleep and away. And so the game is very intentionally saying, like, this isn't just about love. Like, it's about losing yourself and like finding yourself again in different capacities. So, it's just so good.
Yeah. It's I mean, I think it's hard. It's a difficult situation to go through because, like, love is such a keystone experience for us, right? And obviously, again, like we've talked about over the course of the episode, like, it can come in many forms, but it is so core, I think, to our experience, and heartbreak as a corollary is as well. And we see the ways that people, like, we go through so many, we see representations of and go through personally so many different ways of dealing with heartbreak, and some of them are healed and therapy, you know, whatever, and a lot of them are messy and painful and dramatic and giant swords crashing through, you know. To be able to have this sort of coda at the end, and this is one of the things that I think is wonderful about storytelling and games, and like, is it gives a space to be able to feel some hope, right? And the resolution doesn't come from being the masked hero with a full deck of arcana to battle with. It comes from being able to approach each of these situations that felt like you needed to be the masked heroine, as instead just you willing to embrace and provide a certain amount of care and love through a kiss to those situations. And it's that gives her the completion of that cycle and allows her to, dare I say it, begin again.
Damn, you did it.
I did.
You did it.
I did. But yeah, I think that's a really wonderful reading, and yeah, it's such a special game. I'm so incredibly thankful for it.
Me too. And I'm thankful to you and the whole Geeks and Ground community for giving us the opportunity to like sit with it and really, really parse through it in a way that I honestly, especially looking online, I feel like I haven't seen too much that goes this in depth on the game. If anyone has other materials that do, please send them my way, because I would love to see other just deep dives and analysis. But I feel like this is a game that I have returned to over the years. I hope that everyone who has experienced it is somewhat encouraged to return to this game again. And if not this game, maybe another game that you found resonates with you in a similar way, and allows you to feel things like this game allowed us to feel things. But yeah, I just really appreciate the time getting to play this game again and really reflect on it, since it's been out for a while and I've played it, but I've not really sat with it like I have this time around.
Yeah. And I am just like incredibly thankful to the wonderful Jenny Wyndham for putting the time and the space and the opportunity to go through this together. Because it really, I similarly find so little like deep dive discussion of this game. I think it you know, it's a weird, it's a little bit of a, you know, it's an indie darling. It also, you know, drops in late 2019. September is just a hella competitive games time. And it's also real femme and real queer, and like it's a game that it's a game that I feel like is indicative. I consider it a I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it says something about the culture that we have that exists around games, that we don't have more discussion, more space to expound on a game like this. That if it, you know, that we can get tons of visibility and time around the big AAA splashy, you know, 100 hours of quests, that like those games can have some amazing things to talk about too. But this is a kind of all killer, no filler, real, like there's a lot here. And I think that there are very few places on the internet to be able to cover games and to talk about games and think about them in this manner, which is why Geeks and Grounds is so special, because there will be people who will find this discussion or find the spaces that you're curating and will get to understand themselves or the world around them differently because they spent time with what you're putting together here and showed them what games are capable of.
With you. With you. You were here too.
Yes, but like take your flowers. These are yours. Like I appreciate the ability to be a part of it, but like the reason that I played this the first time was because you put me onto it. Like it is really important for there to be places and people who can help folks understand that, like, if you want to dig in, there is more out there. Like, yes, this can be a wonderful path. We both play tons of, this is how I burn my time roguelikes, right? But there are these places that, like, we have books that change our lives. We have movies that change our lives. There are games that do the same. And I don't, and the infrastructure to help people find them is just not as robust. So, like, thank you for making one of those places where we can make those connections and learn.
I will just say thank you and coolly move on to the next topic. Thank you. No, I really do appreciate it. Josh, please remind us, because you also have a community that does really thoughtful exploration and critique and playing of games. Please remind us where to find you and your work.
Yeah, you can find me over on Intelligame, Twitch and YouTube. If you look up Intelligame, INTELLI game. I stream usually on Mondays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific. And it's a really wonderful community of folks. Many Intelligamers are also members of the Café over here at Geeks and Grounds. So a big shout out to everybody who recognizes good community when they see it. I do genuinely think that we have like two of the best communities in games, hands down. Like, I'd fight people about it, you know?
Yes, me too.
So,
so for the month of July, surprise, I have been quite busy and honestly realized I need a little bit of a summer break, mostly to catch up and also to be able to prep for that second half of the year most effectively so I can be as prepped as I want to be to help facilitate the conversations I hope to have here. So for the month of July, we're actually, and it's funny because the thing says still percolating because I was going to be picking a game and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll just bump Yakuza. And then I realized, you know what? we're going to take a summer break. So for July, we're taking a summer break. We're going to relax. Everyone can play. You can play whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can always play whatever you want, but this month especially, we're just going to take a little time off. Honestly, for August and September, we're going to be playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. That is a hefty game. So I would honestly recommend, if you are inclined and wanting to play Yakuza, you should probably start now.
Get started.
There's a lot of side quests. There's a lot of story. Intro cinematics are like 20 minutes long. It's a cutscene game. You know, it's one of the big ones. It's one of the few triple A games that we play. So we'll be back in August on, I should have had the calendar up, August 11th. With the wonderful DJ Stormageddon, aka Matt, who is a Yakuza expert.
Oh, wow.
So I am so excited for him to be guiding us through the conversations as well. We'll be back in August and September with 2 months of episodes dedicated to Yakuza Like a Dragon. We'll start with what we always do, Indiescovery, building context for Yakuza as a series, as well as this particular entry. And then the rest of the episodes will be dedicated to going piecemeal through the game and really deep diving it in the way that I am hoping we can. It's such a hefty game, so I cannot underscore this enough. Start now. Use this break to do a little summer homework, you know what I mean?
Wow.
But yeah, we'll be back in August.
It tells me to do your homework over break.
The teacher in me, summer school homework. Here we go, Yakuza.
Nice.
Honestly, wouldn't that be so cool?
It would.
So yeah, thank you to Matt and DJ Stormageddon for joining us for those 2 months, because that'll be a pretty intense one to go through and dive deep into. And thank you again to you, Josh, for coming back. Long time, friend of the show, basically. Like here, we've been hitting a lot of the Josh classics. So I'm so happy that you've been able to come back and talk in depth with me about this game in particular.
It is a gift spending time with you, period. Getting the opportunity to spend time talking about games in this way that we and our communities are so passionate about. Yeah, thank you. You're incredible as always.
You can go to geeksandgrounds.com to find out more details about everything. Granted, the website does need a little bit of an update, but that's what summer break is for. I will be
for homework.
For my homework, I'm going to be getting my stuff together. But yeah, we also, again, still have our hangout tomorrow, Saturday, June 27th at 3 p.m. Pacific. If you'd like to come and talk about Sayonara Wild Hearts in person and just catch up and hang out and be in good company with folks who also care about games and just care about each other as people. It's great. It's nice. So yeah, we'll see you in August. And until then, remember, wild hearts never die. It's never too late to begin again. All right. Bye.
Bye.